Yeah, I'll kill him.
I remember in the mid 20th century they would do these psychological experiments and they would try to see how far people would go to get to nicotine and they would just go to insane levels. I mean, they'd make them cross like planks over whatever electrified fences or they thought were electrified fences.
Yeah, they did a lot of mice studies. They're kind of, some of them they have video of, and some of it's kind of funny to watch because the mouse is starving to death, and they have it addicted to heroin, and it still goes to the nicotine first. Even
Yeah.
before the heroin, it goes to the nicotine. You know, says no, the first thing that's available, I'm going for. So it takes nicotine over food and heroin. Nicotine comes first.
It gets to your idea about consciousness being kind of like programming and it's like a glitch in the programming code.
Yeah, it's just such a neat chemical the way it does it, because it's so subtle. You know what I mean? It's not like it gets you stoned. It doesn't, it doesn't do anything for you except make you not need to smoke. You know what I mean? You smoke and then the need to smoke is gone. But it doesn't do anything else, generally speaking. I mean, it does relax you a little, but I mean, it's just, it's such a weird chemical that it can just put this idea in your head, like I want a cigarette, and the idea just stays in there. It just keeps saying to you, I want a cigarette, I want a cigarette. And so you can't, like everything else you're doing, it's still saying I want a cigarette. It won't let you
Yeah,
think of something.
I miss those. I miss those intermissions they used to have in, or not that I lived during those times, but those intermissions they used to have in theaters. Because I hate sitting through an entire movie now, and I need a cigarette in the middle.
Yeah, you got to figure out what's the
Oh,
best part to go take a cigarette break. Well, I guess
yeah,
I'll make
yeah, that's exactly what I do. I always leave in the middle and have a cigarette.
I
So.
stick the murder scene or the sex scene. Let's see, which one do I sacrifice?
Did you hear about that
Yeah.
guy that shot up that movie theater because someone was texting?
He didn't shoot up a movie theater.
Well, he shot the one guy though.
Yeah, well, he's a ex-cop. He's a retired ex-cop. Come on, they shoot people in grocery stores, so nothing new there. Let a cop have a gun long enough, and he'll
People who
finally.
talk in the movies are so obnoxious.
I don't get why he'd be angry about somebody texting. I mean, I could see why someone would get angry about someone talking on the phone, but just typing on their phone, I don't get it.
Well, it had to be a
Maybe
phone.
maybe the screen was too bright or something.
No,
Well, they said he'd done it. Oh,
he must have had a phone that had the little beepy noise when you click the keys. So it must have been going beep 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 bop beep beep beep. It must have been making noise or something.
I know they said he'd done it to other people too. That he'd actually tried to follow some woman to the parking lot and was glaring at her and making threatening gestures at her 2 weeks previous to that.
Well, I'm just saying he was just looking to shoot somebody, so he just picked somebody he didn't like the look of and just said, he's texting. Now I'll shoot him. Yeah. I have the same.
Popcorn.
There's.
You got hit with popcorn. He was stand your ground, man.
Well, I'm just saying, if you gave me a gun, okay, fuck you. Yeah, I'd shoot you just for your scarmy comments. Okay, there, you made a trolly comment there. I'd shoot you. Fucking troll.
Well, he might. It was in Florida, I believe. I think he might actually try to use that stand your ground defense. Obviously, it's bullshit. I'm just saying he
I
might
don't
use that.
think he's going to try to use anything but the crazy old fuck defense, okay? He's kind of, there's nobody who's going to have empathy for a crazy fuck who shoots you for texting. So yeah, he's not going to get away with that. All right,
I agree.
that's about 4 steps below the Twinkie defense. I think people are done with that bullshit.
I know it was
That might have been what emboldened him to do it, though.
Well, I'm just saying he should have picked a little tiny bit better target, all right? I mean, he should have just waited for somebody to, like, spit on the sidewalk or something. I mean, fuck, shooting somebody for texting is lame.
I know it seems like assholes don't really kill other assholes, they kill innocent people.
Well, the guy probably wasn't innocent, so that's the dig here, right? I bet you if you tell me who the asshole he shot was, I'd probably say, good, he was an asshole. So, yeah, one less asshole in the world, super, and the other asshole's in jail. Excellent. Great start. Let's see if we can have some more of that. I love asshole on asshole crime. Let's have more of it. But yeah, no, I am kind of, you know, yeah, I watched whatever that stupid movie, God Bless America, and yeah, I didn't even take it as a comedy. I took it as like a romantic drama or something. So yeah, to me, that's yeah, sure, it's a good movie. I mean, they just didn't kill enough people. They had too high a standard.
I knew you'd like that movie, Gary.
Yeah, well, I'd already seen all the good parts. You know, I saw all the 5-minute clips of all the good shooting stuff, and so when I saw the rest of the movie, I was a little disappointed just because the rest of the movie was just kind of throwaway bullshit. So, but yeah, it was a it's good enough.
Gary, what was that? Last week you guys were talking about a couple movies and talked to the Papillon, which I haven't seen that, so I rented that. But there was another one about something with a beach in it. It sounded really interesting, but I can't remember what the name was.
On the beach.
On the beach. I actually watched it again just because I got reminded
Oh,
of it.
okay.
I gotta go watch that again.
I gotta go.
Yeah, and that's Ava Gardner's in it, and you know that guy from the guy I like. You know, the guy from yeah, the guy from you know, the court guy with the little girl and the black guy. What the hell's the name of that guy? God, it's amazing. I can't remember the title of that movie. I mean, that's a great movie. Jeez, that's amazing. I can't remember the name of that movie.
I mean, it sounds pretty cool. I mean, what, he comes out, they surface in the submarine, and World War III's already happened, and the whole planet's a post-apocalypse or something?
Yeah, well, basically, they have World War whatever, you know, and the Russians and the Americans blow everything to pieces. You know, they do the mad thing, you know, the mutually assured destruction thing. And so, yeah, everything's irradiated, everybody's dead, except for the southern hemisphere, which is still eking around. And so they're just waiting for the radiation to get to them. And so that's really the story, is the American submarine's like the last of the American presence on Earth. And, you know, they hang out in Australia for a while, and then everybody dies. All right, Gregory Peck. Right, and what's Gregory Peck's most famous
They should have
movie?
found a way to navigate around the radiation pockets.
Atticus is the guy's name. Atticus. What's the name of that movie? Where he's at?
To Kill a Mockingbird?
There you go. There you go. There you go. That's the movie I was trying to remember. So that's another good movie to watch. Anyway, you got to see that one too. That's classic.
Read the book, never saw the movie.
Oh, the movie was done really
I have like private internet or something.
well. I don't know if it's going to be private. I just think it's going to be so cluttered and so noisy that it's not going to be very useful. You know, unless somebody serious decides to do some kind of public library kind of saving of the internet. But otherwise, yeah, it's just going to turn to shit. I mean, it's already happening. Google is really, you know, like I said, if you want to search for something, I mean, Google's getting less and less useful. You know, you waste more and more time now going through junk websites that have half a sentence, you know. I mean, there's just all these fake websites that have half a paragraph of the text, or half of this, or half of that, piece of this, a piece of that. And, you know, they're just bullshit, and then you gotta go try to find the real source somewhere, and it's just, you know, it's just bullshit.
Do you think there will ever be wetware, so-called wetware?
I don't know what that would be. I don't know what wetware is. I don't think I want
Like
to wear.
implanting it in your head, like in trying to access an internet through your brain.
Yeah, well, I'm all for, you know, virtualizing all of it. So to me, that seems the logical end game. But we're never going to get there. I mean, we're not going to survive as a civilization long enough to get very wet.
Or Google will own all of it.
Yeah, and it'll, you know, yeah, it'll sell it to us with commercials.
Get ads in your brain.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't play a video game if it had commercials in it, right? I mean, if there was commercials in your video game, I mean, you'd say, ah, fuck this shit.
There's a lot of that now, especially on iPad games and things like that. There's all over the place.
Yeah, well, fuck that. That wouldn't fit in my brain.
I don't play them either for that reason, mainly.
Have you ever gotten a malware virus? Like malware?
Oh, I've had some killer viruses. You know, I've had a couple that took me like 3 days to get rid of. You know, and you had to go through 39 steps and, you know, stand on your head, spin around 3 times, reboot, jump up and down, spin, reboot, you know, delete 19,000 files, fuck your computer up entirely, reinstall the operating system, start over. You know, yeah, I mean, I've had some monster viruses, but, you know, lately I've been pretty good.
'Cause I have this virus that plays like ads from like major companies. Like it's this little thing that'll pop up on your internet, and it'll show like ads for like, I don't know, like Target and corporations like that. So I'm wondering like if they put it out somehow, because I don't know why a virus would want to play their ads.
Well, that seems a bit suspicious, so that might be a website that did that, you know, it's a particular website, so.
Well,
I mean,
what about this whole this whole net neutrality thing now that's failed now, so that your service provider, the company, can actually regulate which websites are slow and some are fast? Like the companies can kind of control the content now.
No, they can't really. Realistically,
The cable service providers can give preferential treatment to certain websites, or they can slow down other websites. There's things they can do.
They can't do it without my permission, so I'm just saying, why would I have a service provider that wasn't going to provide me the service? So I'm not going to, if Verizon starts doing it, then I'll find another provider. I mean, that's bullshit. So you'd have to have a company that did it overtly. They have to put that in the terms of service, that we're going to deny you the right to look at certain content. And I'd say, fuck you, go to hell, bastards. I ain't paying you $50 a month to deny me access to the internet, so fuck you. And then if it's a website that's getting, I mean, there's a lot of websites now that are writing for free. Yeah, so now they're going to have to pay for their bandwidth. What's wrong with people paying for what they use? I mean, I just don't think we should have ever mixed the two subjects of the right to access and the right to, and whether you have a right to package services based on usage. Of course they should have a right to package service based on usage. There's no reason why I should pay the same price as you pay if you're downloading movies all day. I mean, I'm a heavy user, so I would pay more, but I'm just saying I should pay more. If I'm using it more, I should pay for it.
There's this ISP in Germany that blocked Skype because they also run telephone stuff. So since you can't call free on Skype, they blocked it, so the users of that provider cannot access Skype.
Yeah, well, I'm
talk to this German.
There's other service providers usually, so I'm just saying, unless they got you hold where you can't make a choice.
Yeah, we had to find another alternative because Skype was blocked, but I just found it a little bit silly.
I'm just saying I don't see how a company could survive doing that in America. I'm just saying if a company started doing that in America, people are going to get pissed off.
Yeah, I think it's weird they accept it in Germany even. I mean, it's, yeah.
Didn't Germany even block Google trying to be all Big Brother?
I don't know, but this company only did it because they didn't want people making calling for free, you know. They wanted their, yeah. Since they also operate the phone line thingies.
Doesn't in Europe oh, sorry.
Well, I'm just saying, I don't think then you're not an internet service provider then, you know, you're a special services provider, but I don't even think you should be allowed to call yourself an internet service provider if you're going to block content based on your own serviceable interest. You're not a service provider then, you're a service non-provider, you're a service blocker. You know. So I think people like that would still be. I think a company like that, frankly, would be subject to a lawsuit in this country. I mean, I think if a service provider tried that, they would have to change. They wouldn't be allowed to call themselves an internet service provider. because that's not providing a service.
In Norway and places like that, don't they have publicly owned utilities that are involved with phone and internet and things like that?
So, well, I think the cables are public, but there are private companies, private providers, but the infrastructure publicly, I believe. Have really nice cable connections in Norway.
Yeah, I got to experience that.
Very good prices as well. So
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think the U.S.
is high here, but I mean, you do have choices, which is good. I mean, I like this FiOS stuff. You know, this fiber optic crap is pretty good. So
I have the lowest possible option, and that's I'm not sure in megabits. It's 3 megabytes a second up and down. So you just time it by 8. How much is that? Divide by 8 to get the megabit. 3 megs per second anyway. Up and down.
Yeah, I know the U.S. has something like the 30th something fastest internet in the world. I think even Ukraine is ahead of us.
yeah, well, I know, but it's like I said, the infrastructure is uneven. So some people, like I said, I mean, I have, you know, you can't get it. You know, if I wanted to pay for it, I could get even more. I'm just saying that the fiber optic stuff is pretty good technology. So
Norway is a tiny country though, so it's
true.
to cover.
but I'm surprised they've gotten as high a bandwidth out of the system as they have, you know, frankly. I mean, I never thought they'd get to the point where they would be able to serve up movies as heavily as they are. So it's pretty amazing in some respects how dramatic an increase in bandwidth there is.
I remember those dial-up days when it took like hours to download a few megabytes.
Oy.
Yeah, well, even 5 years ago, you know, so much better than it was 5 or 6 years ago in terms of, like I said, just the practicality of it. I mean, a 5-minute video was one thing, but movies was another thing altogether.
Didn't YouTube recently put 15 minutes on people's videos again?
No. That just happened to some people, I guess, when they switch to the Google Plus thing. They just have to you know, all you have to do is hit the button and give them your cell phone number or whatever, and then they'll give you back your 15 minutes. So you just have to give them your phone number, and then they're happy to give you their 15-minute, you know, go over 15-minute thing.
Give us your privacy and we'll give you 15 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. You know, they just bribe you out of your rights. So, you know, they sort of do that with Google Plus. You know, if you do something with your Google Plus page, you get all these little extra things you can do where you can change your icon, or you can do this or you do that. So they have these other little privileges you get if you'll go all the way Plusy.
It's like the donkey with the carrot. You just get it to go a little bit further, and before you know it, you're miles away.
Yeah, just keep selling us out a little bit at a time. Yeah, I'm resisting, but you know, you can only resist so long.
I heard something crazy like Google is in the business now of building psychological profiles of you based upon your profile through Google Plus and your searches and things like that.
Duh, duh. Jeez. That's why they bought YouTube in the first place. They didn't buy it to make money. They bought it just to do their data research so they could profile people for their advertisers. So yeah, they have us all profiled. You know, we're all profiled into who clicks ads, who doesn't click ads. You know, they have all that shit. They know exactly what we do. So they'll put a $sign on all of us, and so yeah, eventually they'll just kill all the people that they can't make money off of. They'll just disappear off the face of the earth. That's what
I wonder how advanced.
those Google cars are for. Is they're just doing those stupid Google cars so they can program them to run over all the people who don't click on ads. So eventually we'll all get killed by Google drones and Google cars.
I wonder how detailed those profiles are, though. I wonder if they're just very rudimentary, like, oh, this person likes McDonald's, or I wonder if they go in depth.
Well, I think they probably go in pretty. Look, it's an algorithm, you know. It's all computer science. So frankly, it can go pretty deep. They probably have 1,000 different criteria, you know, that they check. They probably have a thing with 1,000 different categories, you know, where they check you off, and so they have you profiled pretty good.
This may be a
Better
dumb
than,
question, but I just have no idea. What can they do with that information? Like, can they sell it to companies, or
That's the whole point of
is
it.
there some kind of contract,
Well,
like when you sign up, that they can only keep it to themselves?
No, the whole point of them having it is because it has value for advertising. So now they can guarantee performance on ads. So you know, the company can come up to them, they can say, look, we can guarantee you, okay, sales. We can guarantee you performance based on these profiles. And we'll put these ads, we'll profile them to these certain individuals. And so you'll get a huge click-through rate because we're only going to serve these ads to assholes we know are going to click these fucking ads. So they can outdo all the other advertising choices because it's very targeted advertising.
That's a good question, though, Gary. Who do you trust less? Private corporations like Google that are already.
Well, I guess he's talking about the government versus the private industry. I don't know, you know, personally, I don't have a problem with government if we just elect decent people. So, you know, the fact that we just keep electing liars and cheaters and frauds and fakes is what makes government suck. But, yeah, if you elect an honest man, government can work pretty good, right? So I'm not afraid of government. But, I mean, yeah.
What do you think the NSA is doing with all the data that they collect? Like, because they really seem to want to keep doing it, but they only say that it's for like anti-terrorism.
What are you afraid of the NSA? What? We know what they want. They want to kill fucking Muslims. Is this all that?
Yeah, I'm not saying I have a problem with it, but it seems like they might want to do something more with it. I'm just wondering what you think they want to do.
Yeah, they want to do whatever's politically convenient.
To direct them to do that. Only a dictator,
Well, it wouldn't be directing. Obviously, the
person in power could take control of the NSA and use it for evil purposes.
Do whatever the fuck he decides it wants to do, you stupid fuck. You wouldn't need a dictator. All you need is an asshole in charge of the fucking CIA, because the CIA obviously is going to be able to get access to all that information. Exactly, but I'm just saying, all you need is some, you know, asshole who's going to have the keys to the car, and then the car is going to do some wacky shit. But I'm just saying, it's not, I don't feel terribly threatened that the U.S. government, like I said, if the U.S. government's out to get me, they can make the fucking shit up, right? They can say tomorrow, they can have a conversation where they tie together two pieces of clip, where they have me talking to Osama bin Laden, right? You know, they can have, oh, we have a recorded conversation you were talking to him about, you know, what his favorite porn was and all this other bullshit, and yeah, we got you, fucker. And then they'll throw a bag of cocaine in my house. I mean, they don't have any problem fucking me up if they want. If the government wants to come and get me, it can get me with no trouble. It doesn't need real evidence. It can make it up.
Did you hear, though, that some of the ridiculous things the NSA was doing, like they were trying to get in a Second Life and find people in that, and the World of Warcraft, and like it almost makes me feel like they in some instances don't know what they're doing.
Well, I'm just saying they know what they're doing, and
because terrorists go on those things because it's an anonymous place to talk. That's why the government went there. It's because they knew people were using that because it's a place where no one ever looks.
Well, no, and they obviously they have profiled these people. Okay, they know what these losers do. You don't think they have extensive profiles on these people? And what do you think those little Boston lunatics were? They were like a cliche example of dumb Muslims. Okay, right? I mean, they were dumb. They were probably in fucking Second Life talking about blowing shit up.
Well, I know the one was a major conspiracy theorist, and he hung around those kinds of places. So
So I'm just saying, trust me, okay? They might be idiots, but I'm sure they have pretty good profile data. They kind of know what the game is, in terms of what is likely the disenfranchised, disgruntled little petty weasel who's going to turn into a terrorist. They probably have pretty good data on that shit. And so, yeah, and they're profiling. And yeah, it sucks, but guess what? Who cares? I don't.
Gary, do you have a problem with the United States spying on a country like Germany? Because that was something that Snowden revealed. That was a big deal. We had to, and Obama, he did a big speech, and he had to apologize to Germany for doing this. So, I mean, do you think it's, 50 years after World War II ended, should we stop spying on the rest of the world?
Well, I have no interest in doing any of this shit, to tell you the truth. So personally, I would abolish the CIA and abolish the NSA. I don't have any interest in us playing war games with the world. So I don't think it does any good whatsoever. I'm just saying this is the nature of the petty, idiotic world we live in, where we have a petty government that wants to play petty games and tit-for-tat games and all that kind of bullshit. And I say, fuck all that shit. If we don't fucking piss people off, then they won't want to kill us. So why don't we try to be the good guy instead of the bad guy, and then no one will try to kill us.
So do you think if we stop spying tomorrow, do you think China and Russia would just automatically stop spying as well?
Well, who cares, right? What the fuck good does it do? I don't have any evidence that spying does any fucking good. Does it do any good to put landmines here? Does it do any good to drone people? Does any of this shit do any fucking good? I'm arguing, no, it doesn't do any fucking good whatsoever. Know what you should do? You shouldn't let a bunch of Arabs come over here and learn how to fly airplanes. Maybe that would be the smart thing to look out for. But other than that, yeah, who the fuck cares? I'm sick of fucking x-raying shoes and looking for whatever this and whatever. Fuck all that bullshit. You're lame. As soon as you go down that road, you're wasting your time because you're not going to stop anything major. But I'm just saying, I don't give a fuck either way. I don't care if the government listens to every fucking conversation I ever had. I don't care if it's got my fucking toilet. It's got a microphone hidden in my toilet. It's okay. They can listen to every fart. They can go ahead. Go ahead. It's all yours, fuckheads. You want to listen to what comes out of either end of my face? Doesn't matter. My back end, my front end. You're not going to like any of it.
I think another thing they reformed was now that all the data they collect, instead of the government keeping it, now it's going to be in the hands of a private company, where they have to go to court to get the warrant and then go to the private company. So
it was in the hands of a private company anyway. I'm sure they weren't storing the information anywhere else but with Halliburton computers or something. So I'm sure it was already being privately stored.
Or they were just working with Google and Facebook. They just team up with them. And I mean, so that's why it's kind of silly, because these companies have been doing it all along, and these people are using Google and Facebook, and yet they're all upset about the NSA, even though Facebook and Google are doing the same exact thing.
well, and wasn't Snowden the private contractor anyway?
Well, I don't think so,
Yeah,
but it doesn't.
he worked for a private company at Booz Allen Hamilton. That's
Yeah.
the government outsources to them.
Right.
Yeah,
but
most of it is now, I think.
well, I'm just saying, obviously that's a big flaw in government anyway, is that it's all this corporations making all our warfare shit and shooting all our missiles, and NASA and everything. They sold out everything. So yeah, we don't do anything as a government anyway. But again, I'll just say, this isn't what I worry about. I worry about a cop coming to my door, ringing my doorbell, which I don't have, while knocking on my door, and he throws a bag of cocaine on the floor and says, I'm arrested. That's what I worry about.
So you're way more concerned about the local tyrants than any national.
What I'm saying is I'm more concerned about the fact that they can at any minute make the evidence up. Okay? They don't need to spy on me. All right? They can fuck me without me ever doing anything wrong. They can make the evidence up.
If
I mean,
the
that
glove
goes for another person. A private person could fuck you too, right? A private person could plant drugs in your house and then call the cops, say you're a drug dealer, and then they get a warrant, you know, because they believe the tip, and then so anyone
Well,
can fuck you
you
over.
got some hope then, okay? Because guess what? You could at least go to a judge and you could say, look, I'll take the polygraph test, okay? I didn't have anything to do with this shit. I don't know where that shit came from. You have no evidence of me buying it. So, you know, you'd have some hope of defending yourself against that. But I'm just saying, when it's your word against a cop, you're fucked.
Yeah, I remember when they installed tip lines on my school after Columbine happened, and you could rat on anybody, and they would haul your ass down to the office and go through all that.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that is more dangerous in my opinion. You know, having a world where you can't prove your innocence. Like we really should work on this whole idea of having a reliable lie detector, because people need to have a way to defend themselves against the false accusers. Yeah, there's just an awful lot of people in the world willing to lie. That's just spooky. You know, enough political crap. Yeah, well, cops are all evil because, you know, the good cops don't do anything to fix the bad cops, and so they're just bad cops for not fixing the bad cops. Like judges. Judges know there's a lot of bad judges on the bench and they don't do anything about it. Oh, what else is news?
What about your physics video talking about sound and light and things of that nature?
Yeah, well, we won't talk about that because nobody likes that subject. It's funny how few views those videos get, like 50 views. The videos got like 60 views. I mean, nobody likes the subject of physics.
It's a shame because I remember I talked to you about it a couple weeks ago, and you were talking about special relativity and you always being the same distance from light, even no matter how fast you go, you're always distant from it and everything. It's interesting.
Yeah, well, I don't think they get it, you know. I just think people are misunderstanding relativity because, you know, they always do these thought experiments, and these thought experiments are, well, what if you were traveling, you know, 3/4 the speed of light? You can't travel 1/4 the speed of light. You know, physically, you start falling apart. So it's just wrong for people to talk about thought experiments that they're not getting why there's a time dilation. There's a time dilation because your matter is no longer fucking matter. You're turning into energy. You start going anywhere near the speed of light, you are no longer material.
Did you say something? I'm trying to remember if I understand you right. You said something a few weeks ago about there being like was it in each photon almost has like a little clock in it or something, or each neutron or something like that?
Yeah, well, I
You
suppose
slit experiment.
obviously there's an element to it when it comes to like radioactive material. There's a reason why it decays at a certain period of time, and so yeah, the time is built into its creation, and so you know it's all created in different stars. You know, so when you have a hunk of uranium, every one of those uranium atoms came from a different star. Okay, they didn't come
Yeah.
from the same place. They weren't born in the same place. You know, they were born at very different times in space, and so they have a very different history. So yeah, they're on a different clock, and that's why they decay in a different time.
If you think you took one from one star and one from another and you put them together, what do you think would happen? Would they affect each other's time, or would they still go along in that way?
Well, I just think that time has to do with how you can almost look at it as orbits decaying, you know? So there's a time when the orbit decays, you know? So it's like the space station fell out of space eventually because its orbit decayed. So it's the same kind of thing except on billions of years of time scales, you know? So it's a whole different kind of time scale. So yeah, those effects they're not going to mesh with each other too much. But there is
Do you think,
the jitter in matter. You know, matters. You know, atoms are moving in the sense that their electron is always moving into different orbits, and its balance, its center of gravity, is constantly changing, and so that's
yeah,
a frequency built into the atoms itself. So every atom, you know, depending on its atomic weight, is vibrating at a different frequency. And that's what makes this subject interesting when it gets to quantum mechanics and why does light, how it goes through glass and why it does what it does in glass. And I think that
yeah.
can all be explained based on the fact that there's different elements inside each element, you know, each compound inside the glass, you know, the atoms inside of it as as connected elements are vibrating at one frequency and the atoms themselves are vibrating at individual frequencies, and those frequencies are essentially opening and closing the door, so to speak, to the
Yeah.
structure of the glass. So it's almost like a, you know, one of those time vortexes, but it's like the doors are going in and out, in and out, in and out, and that's what's changing how much light gets through.
So do you think the effect is just an amalgamation of these different doors opening, to use your terminology?
Yeah, well, I think that's what the quantum effects are based on. So I don't think there's anything magical in the photon. I think there's something magical in the matter that it interacts with, right? So they never take into account the matter the photon is interacting with. They keep talking about what the photon is doing, and there's no point in talking about it. It's doing something so simple, right? It's moving at the speed of light in one direction. It's doing one motherfucking thing, and it's what the matter is doing is the important thing. And how
So
is
you
the
think they're
photon
looking in the wrong
interacting?
place?
Yeah, I just think they're obviously. I think they are. Yeah, I think the complexity is in the structure of the material, not in the structure of the photon.
I know, do you, what do you think about not, like, the whole idea of the observer effect, and the minute you measure quanta, it affects it, basically, and you can't measure it and have it be in its natural state at the same time.
Well, I think it's just a truism. Okay, that there's nothing. Let's say there's nothing smaller than photons, right? Especially like say the highest frequency photons would be the smallest ones, which would be like cosmic rays or whatever. So
Yeah,
there's nothing smaller you can bounce off of it. So obviously the only way you can interact with it, it's like having a Volkswagen going down the road 30 miles an hour, and I want to find out how fast it's going. I have to throw a Volkswagen at it, right?
yeah,
That's going to tell me how fast it was going, but it's going to make a fucking mess, right? There ain't going to
yeah.
be no Volkswagen left, okay? After I hit it with my Volkswagen, it ain't going to be a Volkswagen anymore.
So do you think there's ever any way around that we could ever intervene at that level without affecting anything? Do you think that's an inviolable law?
No way to interact. So I'm just saying we don't have any structure that we could possibly interact with it. So there's nothing small. Again, I'll just say the same thing over again. There's nothing smaller. So there's no
Yeah,
way to throw something smaller. I can't throw a tennis ball at it. I can't throw
yeah,
something smaller. So I'm stuck. You're stuck. There's no way to get around that paradox. There's no
yeah,
way to make it visible. You can only understand it theoretically. You can't understand it practically. There's no experiment you could conduct to know for certain. All you can know for certain is the theoretical part. You can understand the principles and the laws. So I'm saying, yes, we can make it predictable, once we understand the mechanism. We won't have to base it on probability anymore. We'll say for a certainty what a certain photon is going to do. But we're never going to be able to do it. We're never going to be able to do the experiment because you're never going to be able to test it.
yeah. Just some things you can't break down.
Yeah, no, you'll only be able to deduce it once you have enough evidence of how all the other parts are working, and you'll find these final pieces of the puzzle you'll pop in, but there's no, it's like having a black puzzle piece. You know what I mean? There'd be no way to tell where
Yeah,
it goes until you
like
have
a
the other.
black hole even.
Well, I'm just saying, there's no way to detect until you have the other pieces in place, right? You can't put it in place beforehand. You have to wait till the other pieces are there.
Yeah, like I was saying with the black hole, they can't actually see it, but they can look around it and see the planets moving and be able to tell their speeds and tell there's something there.
Right, and like I said, we'll be able to figure out that there are variables within photons and within matter that are creating the quantum effects. And so it's not a probabilistic thing, it's an absolute thing. We just don't have those variables yet. We just don't understand all those gates and all those mechanisms. But as soon as we understand those
Yeah.
gates and mechanisms, we'll know exactly what's going to happen.
I mean,
One
like, I'm
thing I
wondering if physicists actually believe that there's like a true randomness in all of this, because, you know, I was looking up how to make random number generators and programming and all that, and some people think that if you hook up a computer to a Geiger counter, which is hooked up to a piece of uranium that's decaying, it can be truly random or some bullshit like that.
Well, it could be random beyond any need for anything. Like random by definition is just an irregularity that's beyond your tolerances. You know what I mean? So it depends
Yeah,
on
but
what
they're
you.
saying like it's truly random,
Well, I know. Well, I'm just saying
which,
in a sense, it is truly random in the sense that it's as random as a 15 billion year old universe could produce. And so, based on the fact that it's got, you know, a billion years, let's say, of irregularity built into it, it's going to be a pretty funky dance. Okay, it's going to be as random as you want random to be, in the sense that you won't be able to tell because it's so densely random. It's so densely irregular. So it has so many variables caught up in it. It is so irregular that there's no way you could not perceive it as random. So you could never see its unrandomness because you'd never build anything that has so many like say with computers, a random generator on a computer, you can find the flaw in the randomness by just forcing it to produce millions of pixels at a time, right? So if you use a random number generator and then produce video with it, you can see patterns develop, and you'll start to see lines and different things show up because you'll defeat the random number generator. Okay, it'll lose its randomness, and you'll see patterns. All right, because you're demanding more from the math than the math can produce in terms of irregularity, and so you're seeing the irregularities and the regularities are built into the mathematical structure. But I'm just saying there's nothing we could technically build that could be more that could display the non-randomness of radioactive decay, because there's an apple is to the earth what a atom what a say that the right way, right? What an atom is to an apple. Okay, so you have to realize just how many atoms there are in just a tiny amount of uranium, and so there's no there's just it's so dense in terms of its random capacity that you could never display. Well, anyway, I've said it as best I can say it.
yeah, I mean, I get all of that, but I'm just wondering, 'cause I don't really keep up with the physicists or whatever, like, do they actually believe, like, there is some sort of, like, magic in there? Like, or are they just sort of,
Well, yeah, there's
like, throwing up their arms and saying, I give up, I'm just gonna pretend it's probability, I'm not gonna try to figure it out or whatever?
I don't know why they do it exactly, because it seems really stupid to draw that conclusion, because obviously even in the quantum, the stuff that you're talking about is like whether the photon is in, say, in this circle, and you're saying it's random where it is in this circle. Okay, it could be in 1,000 locations in this circle. And it just seems silly, when you have such a small amount of randomness to conclude it's random. You know what I mean? That to me is a silly conclusion when you could say, oh no, that's just the part we're not seeing. I mean, there's definitely, we could make that circle smaller and smaller and smaller with a little more information and eventually make that circle zero. So I just think it's silly for them to conclude at this point that it's truly random and not realize that, no, it really probably just has to do with the fact that photons have a history, and their history makes them unique. Each photon is in a different electromechanical state, and their electromagnetical state is going to determine their behavior. So it's just silly to say they're all identical, because we know they're not identical. They didn't travel the same distance. I mean, that's the big flaw in the two-slit experiment, is that they create an experiment that is deliberately trying to create eccentric photons. See, so they have a really long distance between the gun and the target, and they put a thing in between it, because what they're basically trying to do is get photons to bounce off the surface, bounce off the back wall, and then go through the slit. So they're trying to get photons that have traveled eccentric lengths of time distance to go through the slit. So that's the variable they're creating. So instead of having a consistent stream of photons that go straight through the slit, the whole point of the experiment is to filter out the eccentric ones. That's why they create the initial opening that forces the photons through the initial opening, because that's basically a random photon generator. They're basically creating eccentric photons to do the experiment with. So there you go, right there. They're screening for non-similarity, and so they're automatically trying to create photons that are a different age and have traveled different, that have a different life history. And so as soon as you do that, of course, the photons will behave differently because they have a different origin.
Yeah,
So
and
is
if you
this
just
kind of-
moved the gun closer, it would be less eccentric.
Well, exactly. I mean, if you just had a gun that shoots straight, right? I mean, this is the whole point, right? They say don't use a gun that shoots straight, because then, yeah, the effects won't happen. So the whole idea is to create bullets that are coming in all kinds of strange directions and have all kinds of weird and eccentric spins on them.
So how do they get away with it? Because it's so contaminated.
Well, I don't know why they get away. Frankly, I don't understand. The damn thing's 100 fucking years old, right? The two-slit experiment's been around 100 fucking years. Einstein, you know, shat on it, but he didn't shit on it hard enough, and so he left enough of it that it could peek through the shit and it escaped. But I mean, it should have been blown up as bullshit a long fucking time ago, and I can't believe some asshole like me has to show up to sit there and do this. Why should it be my job? I mean, fuck. But yeah, this is bullshit. I mean, this quantum crap is that. It is fucking crap.
Well, I guess you have to do it with a lot of other things, so the physics isn't any different, right?
It is true, right? I mean, why do I have to explain to people that life's kind of sloppy and dirty and messy and stinky? I mean, why the fuck? No one else could figure that out? Oh, this is a little bit messy. Maybe we should figure out whether it's worth doing, because it's kind of messy.
You know, I'm kind of curious that, I don't know, maybe you don't know this because it would be hard to comprehend, but I've seen over the years how fanatically people hate you and the lengths they go to fuck with you, and I wonder what motivates them so much. I mean,
I'm too damn pretty, okay? It's just about the fact that I'm too fucking pretty, okay? And nobody likes pretty people.
because I'm thinking if these sorts of people are such life lovers, why are they going to these lengths? You know what I mean? They should be out like in the sunshine or something, seeing how beautiful life is.
Like they have nothing better to do with their life than play troll on the internet, you know, and you're just saying, wow, and I'm the loser? I don't think so.
So you think it's more they just want to fuck with you versus they really are life lovers?
Well, I think that's usually the thing, you know. It's just that people hate people for whatever reasons. Why does somebody hate, you know, like sports teams or something? People, I hate the Boston Red Sox. I want the Boston Red Sox to die of cancer. You know, I mean, people get all nutty about shit, and you're just saying, why the fuck is he so nutty about that?
Because, yeah, I mean, because, like I said, when I think of life lovers, I think of people who are all, like, fruity and optimistic. I don't think of people who spend their time on the internet harassing people and, you know, dropping docs and all that shit. You know what I mean?
Life lover's a tricky word, you know, because they're not really life lovers. They're just, you know, they obviously have their stoic philosophy or whatever the hell it is, and they're a defender of, it's a kind of religion, right? So they're sort of defending their religion of stoic obedience to the principle of survival for the sake of survival, or whatever the fuck their ego is stuck to. And maybe they've had a kid or two, maybe they're invested for some other reason. Maybe they just don't want to call their mother a dumb, skanky whore. But whatever it is, there's some reason why they just can't get the idea that, oh yeah, well maybe life is kind of a dumb thing to be having. Maybe it's not too drastic. Feel like
It's
babies.
like I'm saying, these people don't just debate you, like they go to great lengths to harass you and fuck with you, and I'm just like, what could be, the motivation there? I'm just trying to figure that out. I don't understand it.
Yeah, well, it's just knocking the king off the mountain thing or whatever the hell that is. They're just resentful of my charm and eloquence, and so they wish to destroy me. So I'm too charming and too eloquent and I've outsmarted them too many times, and so yep, that's I just win. I win too often, and so they got to knock the winner down.
So you think it's just, yeah, they just get so invested in the argument that it becomes an ego thing, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's all it is, frankly. Everything's an ego thing. Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, they hate my freedom. Yeah, that's it. They hate my freedom.
Did you ever make a video like similar to your consciousness video where you do something about the ego, like draw out like a map of the ego?
Oh yeah, well I've mapped the brain about 50 times. I don't know, it must be at least 50 videos where I have a brain map. So, and every one of them looks like a piece of shit, but yeah,
Like, do you think if you broke down what an ego is, it would just be like these really like simple things like I want people to like me? Like, say you could take like one thing that people do, like their desire to like socialize. Do you think you could break that down into like just some really simple like thing, like
well,
desire?
I think you can do a Freudian thing with it, actually. I mean, I think you can break it down to the same kind of appetites we have, the other visceral appetites, like you're hungry for food and you're hungry for, let's say, sex, and the ego is the story that goes with it. So the ego writes the story of how you get your food and sex, or your status. But I mean, it is like yeah, I mean, it's probably worth me doing a video on, but just because I haven't really tried to dissect the ego itself. I've just called it the ego and put it there and said that's what it's sort of this gooey, messy little organ that's sitting there. So I mean, it probably would be worth trying to break it down. But I mean, you can understand the biological reason for it, right? I mean, you can see it in every mammal. You can see ego, especially in the males. You can see it's strong, how powerful a force it is. This whole alpha, playing the alpha game and putting your horns down and running into the other fucker, and So I mean, we're definitely driven, for this self-perception thing. This idea that I'm one is important to us. That I'm succeeding. I've earned it. And that idea of defeat, and the fact that the defeat humbles you and makes you into a simpering, whimpering pussy shit. And so this whole, you can see it like with wolves especially. I mean, you see that, the dramatic difference in personality, between the alpha and the betas. So we're definitely got that in us. We have that mechanism. But yeah, it would be interesting to try to dissect it, into something even clearer. I don't think that would be Luddite. You wouldn't say ugly cunt. Faggot? No, you wouldn't say that. No, it's a fake Luddite.
Hey Gary, you said quantum mechanics is bullshit, but actually quantum mechanics has a greater precision than the general relativity.
Hey! Stop. Prove that I said quantum mechanics is bullshit.
Well, I think
show me where I said quantum mechanics is bullshit.
I
Okay?
think you're
Quantum mechanics is math. Okay? What is bullshit is quantum theory. That's bullshit.
The mechanics are built into the theory.
No, I'm sorry. No, you can't play that game. Okay? No, the theory is multiverse. The theory is string theory. The theories are numerous, convoluted sacks of shit. All right? The mechanics, quantum mechanics, the math, is just math. It's just probability math. It doesn't say anything extraordinary. It doesn't talk about randomness. It doesn't say the probability is anything real. It doesn't say that it's being created by a random number generator. It doesn't say anything. It just says we can't know. We don't have enough information to say where this photon is at this particular moment in this explicit second of time. And that's all it says. It doesn't say anything. It just says we're going to do the math even though we don't know exactly where it is. We know a probability, and it just takes the probability. I call it error math because it's just basically taking a huge error and just moves it through the math without letting the error destroy the math. And that's all it does. And it does it by creating this complex mechanism of vectors, and what's the other thing it uses to protect the fact that it doesn't have sufficient. It's like decimal places, right? And when you do math, you have to have the proper number of decimal places in the numbers you're doing, and so there's no point in doing math when you have one variable with only one decimal place. Then all the other decimal places, you might as well just throw them out in the woods because it doesn't matter anymore.
Figures.
Yeah, because you already have significant digits. So you already broke your significant digit rule. And all fucking quantum mechanics allows you to do is to do the math without the significant digits.
Yeah, actually, Gary, that raises an interesting point because, you know, if I asked you to give me a 4, you couldn't give me a 4, so math is kind of subjective, but how do you think it, you know, unravels in with the...
A 4 is a category, okay? That's all 4 is. It's a category. It's not complicated. 2 is a category. And things that get put in that category have explicit and certain and definite and absolute characteristics. So it's not something I can't give you. It has an explicit definition. It's not an inexplicit definition. It's not a vague definition. It's an explicit, naturally occurring, factual, existing thing. 2-ness exists, 3-ness exists, 4-ness exists. These are not fake things. They are real things.
Yeah, no, well, you just agreed with what I said. You can give me 4 of something, but there is no 4.
Well, I'm just saying there is 4 as a concept. A concept is a category, has a definition, and math has very explicit definitions. There's no problem with math. Math is a discovered, it's a revealed truth. Math
Okay,
is not
so,
a made-up truth.
So 4, yeah, okay, so 4 apples and 4, you know, glutons are not the same. It's just a number.
They're the same. Who said they're the same? They're the same in the sense that there's 4. They're the same in that you call them white, or you call them black, or you call them green. That's what they are.
Yeah, it's a descriptive definition. It's not something, though.
It's idiotic not to say it's not something. It's a fucking description of a real event. It's like rain, or it's like magnetism, or it's like electricity. It's a real event. We're describing its realness. 2-ness is a reality. 3-ness is a reality. 4-ness is a reality. It's not fake. It's not made up. It's not inconsequential. It's fucking real. It's perfectly accurate. It has no flaws.
The only physics theory that provides a somewhat accurate description of how things work at the quantum level is quantum theory. I mean, Newtonian mechanics doesn't work at all.
No, I'm sorry. There's no such thing as quantum theory, so it's just crap. All right? What quantum theory are you talking about?
I'm talking about quantum mechanics. You know, the
Well,
equations
that's
of
not
quantum
a
mechanics.
theory. Quantum mechanics is math, okay? Again, you're just not getting it. Quantum mechanics is mathematics. It doesn't say anything about what causes the effect. All it does is create a mathematical mechanism with which you can understand or see how the effect will play out. But it does not explain cause. Quantum mechanics has nothing to do with causation. Again, it's all just probability. You can see it in the numbers. I mean, you can use Feynman diagrams and and understand it explicitly. You can understand that this is something that these probabilities happen for a structural reason. You can almost see it in a Feynman. I mean, I don't know why Feynman didn't even just say it. Like, look, I got the diagram here. Basically, we understand that this is a physical mechanism. I mean, Feynman even said that in one video. I was happy about that, where he actually said the idea that he thinks the whole thing breaks down to a checkerboard. That it all breaks down to a very simple mechanical structure, and that we can't see it because it's too small and there's too much of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've heard like everything could be pixelated, almost like a a Sims type of environment, and that doesn't seem too far off.
Well, I'm just saying that the mechanics behind quantum mechanics are mechanics. They're not fudge. They're not magical. It's a mechanical process. These photons have a condition, and their condition, as I'm pointing out with the two-slit experiment, their condition is unique, and that's why they behave differently than each other. One will react different than the other one because they have a different source, they're a different age, they are going to electromagnetically react with material splits in different ways because of their different origin. And that's the probability. That's what is revealed. Like I said, I mean, I'm going to work some more on this glass thing because it's very interesting, these layers of glass and how photons travel through glass. But it's really interesting on how, the effect of how there's, how you get double the reflectivity, and, based on how thick the glass is, it changes how reflective the glass is, and really interesting effects. But all those effects are being caused by a mechanical process, not a magical process.
So do you think that all these atoms or photons are of different trajectories and different ages will eventually cause them to kind of split apart in the end? I mean,
Well,
the whole universe.
I do think there might be actually, as funny as this sounds, but I mean, you might be able to mix like 3 ingredients, like an egg, a frog, and an eye of a newt, and actually blow up the universe. I mean, I think it's actually possible that the entire structure of the universe could be destroyed just by causing a chain reaction in regular matter. So that it is theoretically possible to disintegrate the bonds that hold atoms together by introducing some sort of hypermatter, that would fuck up all the nucleuses of all the atoms or something. So yeah, I think.
So it's like a really complex knot, and you're just finding the part that you pull apart, and the whole thing comes apart.
Yeah, it's all made out of thread, or whatever you want to break it down to. But yeah, it's all made out of photons. All the matter is photons. It's just photons trapped. So if you think of it that way, that the entire universe is just photons. Photons moving at the speed of light. And the ones that get trapped in orbits around each other turn into electrons and neutrons and protons and all that shit. But they're made out of photons, and so they're just still photons spinning around each other instead of going in a direction. So instead of going in a direction, they're caught spinning around each other like magnets caught in a dance, and they're just chasing each other's tails in this spin. And so all matter is really just photons waiting to be liberated, saying, "Let me loose, let me free." So it's like just so it's all like a gravity that's just holding everything together. And once so there's theoretically you could just pull one string and everything starts to unravel.
I don't know about that, Gary. Photons are supposed to be massless, and electrons, protons, and neutrons all have masses.
But that's not true. So, physicists don't agree on that massless thing. See, it's only massless because that was the standard applied. They said this is where we'll have the 0 point. But the 0 is an arbitrary. So if you just move the standard up 1 notch, you'll create mass in a photon. So, I mean, obviously Feynman thought photons had mass because they obviously impart energy. That's how you can make a solar sail, is because photons have a mass, because they obviously impose energy onto the surface they hit, and something without mass couldn't possibly convey energy. So, you know, I think it's silly to say they don't have any mass. They have obviously the smallest mass because they're made out of the smallest thing, the quanta. You know, I mean, one photon could be 1,000 or 1,000,000 or 1,000,000,000 quanta. You know, who knows? But I'm just saying the photon itself is the smallest collection that we can detect of energy. There might be smaller bits of energy floating around the universe, but obviously we have no way to detect smaller bits of energy because they don't have any effect on atoms, and atoms are the only things we can, you know, it has to affect an electron or bigger for us to be able to really detect it. So it would become irrelevant what the substrate is. Okay, maybe all that dark matter is out there in the form of disassociated quanta, but I'm still going to theorize that no, the only real quanta is the stuff moving at the speed of light, and the smallest thing it's in is whatever the cosmic ray, and everything else is some bigger version, some longer wavelength of the same thing. But they get bigger as you get further slower down the, I mean, not slower, further down the scale of the electromagnetic spectrum. But the electromagnetic spectrum is all of energy, and that's really it. That's the game. And so everything's made out of those photons in different forms. I mean, photons that are in the form of light are the ones that are the most numerous, but there's a lot of photons in the form of radio waves and all kinds of other particles. But yeah, thank you for the conversation. I know it's a subject most people hate it, so I don't want to stay on it forever, but I really find it interesting, physics. Lots of ground to work on.
I know it's fascinating. There's a kind of beauty to it.
Well, I just like the puzzle there. It's a puzzle that just, they haven't, you know, it's there to be solved. You know, there's a puzzle here, and people are just letting it go, and I'm like, no, this is like a Rubik's Cube. Let's figure out how to do it. You know, I mean, it's there to be solved. Nobody's done it. No one's drawn a really good picture of what the fuck the universe is doing.
So Gary, you were saying that you thought the photons have like maybe a really small amount of mass, but have you ever considered that it might just be pure energy, and like when that energy hits something, then maybe it like converts to mass or something?
All it can hit is an electron or a nucleus of an atom. That's all it can hit. So you have to explain this energy just floats around, it hits an electron and imparts energy onto the electron. And I'm just saying, I don't think that makes any sense, because then the electron releases another little packet of energy. I mean, I think it is a thing, you know, so I just don't think there's any point in saying, and I just don't see any reason to say it doesn't have mass, because it acts as if it has mass. It has all the properties of something that has mass. It's deflected by, Einstein proved it. Okay, I mean, light is deflected by gravity. How could something with no mass have its trajectory altered by gravity?
Yeah, I mean that makes total sense. And I mean, when you consider like you know, like the equation for kinetic energy, 1/2 mv squared, something can't have energy unless it has a mass in that kind of situation.
Yeah, well, like I said, I just think that the reason why it's perceived as a neutral mass is just because it's the starting mass, you know. So, you know, it just got called 0 when it probably should be called +1 or whatever. You know, it's just the scale, you know, is a little bit broken. They just made the ruler a little bit wrong, because they didn't realize that their scales can't measure the smallest thing. Because you can't make a scale to measure the smallest thing on, right? What are you going to make the scale that you measure the smallest thing out of, right? So how do you measure the smallest thing?
Right, yeah.
Right.
At the same time, though, photons, they don't accelerate to the speed of light. They just immediately are at the speed of light. So it seems kind of unlikely that you could
I know, but
accelerate
the
some
accelerate,
mass.
that's the key word. I know, no, but remember this. I'm telling you that I don't think they ever accelerate, right? See, what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
saying is
I get
the
that.
photon is never created, it's just released. So photons aren't generated by anything ever. They're just released from a trapped orbit. So there is no, it's like saying if the moon got free of the Earth's orbit, you wouldn't say the moon accelerated. You'd just say the moon was liberated. So there is no reason why it would accelerate because all you're doing is liberating something that's been trapped. So that's why matter can't be created or destroyed, is because the matter is energy. The matter isn't made out of something else, it's made out of photons. And the photons have always been going the speed of light and will always go the speed of light, and all you can do is release them and not release. You can capture them and release them, and that's all you can do. And that's all the universe is doing, is really capturing and releasing photons. It's not doing anything else. So my vision of the universe would be like some sort of three-dimensional grid, where you can bend some of the grid work, with gravity and such, and it's just photons traveling through that grid work until they get caught in these loops, and these loops become, interlocking, like interlocking rings that a magician uses. You can, they have an opening at the end, an overlap, and they can hook onto each other, so the loops get caught. And that starts to build your matter. And I kind of, what I like is I have this vision of an electron as two photons rotating. So that creates your spin on your electron. So if you have two photons, that might be a string of quanta, like little beads, and they get tied into each other, then they start moving in a circular manner around each other, then they start using up their speed of light because they're using some of their speed to go in the circular manner. So that's why electrons can move at variable speeds. It's because the faster they spin, the slower they move laterally. So that's why electrons can move very, very fast or pretty damn slow, is because it all depends on how fast they're spinning.
This probably seems like a really silly question, but what is actually like an electron? Like, how would you describe an electron? Because I've been trying to figure that out, and I've been looking it up, but I can't really
Well, I
understand
think
what an electron actually is, or a proton.
well, electrons have a wonderful fascination for photons. I mean, photons and electrons are, they're doing most of the interacting in the universe. So electrons are always releasing photons and capturing photons, and this is what they're doing all the time. So I think the idea of thinking about an electron as just being a bunch of photons, okay, they're trapped. They're all like magnets. They got all stuck together, and so they're in a they're in like a DNA molecule, so it's a double helix, and they spin around each other. And when they're trapped inside an atom, what I'm suggesting is that they're trapped inside a loop, so they're chasing their own tail. So they're a bunch of magnets all stuck together, and then at the end point, they don't quite stick because it's north on north or something. So there's a little gap at the end, but they're still chasing the end. And so they're just chasing their own magnetism in a sense, and they're just spinning on that at the speed of light. And well, not at the speed of light because they're spinning at the same time. So that's what makes it complicated. But yeah, so just think of it like you could say 1,000,000 photons, or you could say 1,000,000,000 photons. So you could say an electron is like 1,000,000 photons just caught in a loop around an atom. And when you liberate an electron, then it's just this string of, size and of photons spinning this way and moving that way.
That's probably one of the problems I had with learning science in school. They never really broke anything down for me. Like, I mean, what actually is an electron? Like, what is the actual theory behind it? What is the physics of it in
Yeah, well, the
chemistry
model
class and all that?
always
Now it's
suck.
extremely
The
frustrating.
models suck. I mean, even the current standard model is so convoluted, and they're looking for this bosons and hosons and zosons, and I mean, they're just going to go on forever with these synthetic particles they keep making up to glue everything together. And, I think the whole thing has gotten quite, wonkery. It's just gotten quite wonky. And it doesn't tell you anything about what's really going on. So yeah, the models. I mean, when I was a kid, the models would really suck because they were just like, oh, it's like a solar system. So it's really lame because there's no way you can imagine a solar system with things spinning that fast and so far away from the nucleus, and none of that made any sense. But I think my idea of the connecting rings for the orbits makes a lot of sense because that explains why these orbits seem so eccentric and so distant from the nucleus, is because they're rings connected.
I mean, to me, it's funny that you mentioned how the whole solar system analogy was sort of broken for you, but I mean, even now, like, that's how I'm sort of imagining it. Sort of just this smaller scale of a solar system that's just going a lot faster.
So the problem we have is that we have these invisible things that are the forces that are all invisible, and so I still haven't gotten it completely figured out. But this whole idea of velocities and the center of gravity of matter moving through space, it sort of makes you sort of understand that it's when you move, when something's moving, it's not being accelerated anymore. Let's say it's just already already accelerated and it's moving. So you have a spaceship in space, the rockets fire, it's moving. What keeps it moving? Right? I mean, the only thing that's keeping it moving is its internal forces, right? So something inside of it must be saying, go that way, right? I mean, there's nothing external telling it where to go. There's nothing pushing it anymore. So obviously it's something inside of it that compels it to keep going. And so once you understand it in that way, you start losing this idea of a force, and you start thinking about, again, like, oh yeah, these are mechanical things, not forces. Forces is what we have called the things that are invisible. But the things that are invisible probably aren't invisible. They're real effects. And once you change something, once you change its interior structure, well, if I told you that more of the light inside of the matter of that rocket was moving in that direction now, in its orbits, so all of its matter was aligned up in such a way that when the electrons and the photons spun inside the atoms, more of them spun in that direction than in that direction. So they ended up going that way because more of the light inside of the matter is going that way. So, that's, when you start thinking about it in those terms and you start understanding, oh yeah, it's not a force, it's something that changes the structure in me. So gravity, it isn't creating a force pushing me down. What's happening is gravity is changing the structure of the space with my atoms are in. And now my atoms are pushing me down. My atoms are saying, I want to go to the center of the Earth. In terms of the speed of light overall is heading down. And so the force is inside me, not some external thing pushing me down. It's an internal change in my structure that's compelling me to go down.
I mean, I'm almost thinking about how they taught me space and how that was all wrong too. Like, they were teaching me if you went into one distance at a certain speed, you'd continue at that distance forever, but I mean, that's really not true. When you revolve around, when you get near to the Earth, or your periapsis or whatever, you start accelerating even faster, even though nothing is really forcing you to move faster, in a sense.
Well, I'm just saying what's forcing you is the change inside your molecular structure. So I'm just saying anything that changes the orientation of your atoms. So even something electromechanical, right? Like a magnet, what is it doing? Right? There isn't two things pushing the magnets together. There's something happening to the structure of the magnets that's that's forcing their electrons to point in those directions. So it's all very electromechanical. You can see the electricity and its effects in terms of an electromagnet. You can see what it does. And I'm just saying those effects are just like gravity in the sense that it creates this force, but it's not a force and as if something's pulling it. It's a force inside in the fact that it's changing the molecular structure of the thing. So when you magnetize a piece of steel, what you're doing is changing the electrons, the orientation of the atoms inside of the steel. You're aligning the atoms in a particular way so the steel becomes a magnet. And it has a plus and a minus pole because you have realigned the atoms inside of the steel. And so I'm saying is that all these forces aren't really forces, they're changes in the internal structure of the matter itself, and the matter itself is making it do the thing. So the matter's doing the thing because it's been reoriented, and by reoriented you change its net, the net equation of where its light wants to go. I guess what I'm saying is atoms have a native directionality, you know, based on how they orbit. And so if they're allowed to orbit freely, they orbit eccentrically. And so that's the wobble in the atom, is the fact that it's changing its poles all the time. And so when it's oriented in a certain way with other atoms, all the poles will line up, and you'll end up with this net effect of, you know, more force at one end than you have at the other end. Or more force in a direction. So I'm just saying, once you establish that, you know, once like say if I made the moon, when the moon was passing the United States, I pushed the moon 1 foot forward, you know, in its orbit. So every time it went past the United States, it got pushed one foot forward. So it's going in that direction 1 extra foot. You know what I'm saying? So there would be an overall balance, and it would change the center of gravity for the entire Earth-Moon structure would be changed because of that 1 foot difference. Because I skipped 1 foot, I have now changed the center of gravity of the Earth and the Moon combined. And so that's what I'm basically talking about, is that what happens when you realign these atoms is that you change their center of gravity, and it's their center of gravity that dictates whether they're going to move or not.
Alright, yeah, I'll definitely think about that more. Some of the stuff at the end was just way above me, but yeah, I'm definitely going to try to wrap my head around it.
Understand, like, you know, what makes it really visible is when you think about, you know, like I said, the stuff moving in space, and the fact that you can tumble it all you want. You know what I mean? Like I can make it spin or tumble, and I won't change its direction. So if I don't change its center of gravity, I can, like, say if I have a little rocket on the tip of the capsule's moving this way, and I have a little rocket here, and I shoot the rocket off, I'll just make it spin this way. It'll still go exactly the same speed in this direction. It won't go in this direction at all. It'll just spin on its own center of gravity. Now if I hit the rocket right on the center of gravity and then do the same thing, then I would move it. And so now it would be going the same speed in this direction, and it would also have a speed going in the lateral direction. All right, so it would have this diagonal direction be created because of the two different vectors you've created of acceleration. But you can only do it when you move the center of gravity. So it's really important. The center of gravity thing is the whole game. That's the thing to understand, is that everything has a center of gravity, and if you move the center of gravity, you'll force the thing to move. And so what happens inside of matter is the center of gravity is subtly changed by pushing the moon that 1 foot, that idea. So all I'm saying is all I have to do is change an electron, have it move 1 little bit extra on one orbit and 1 little bit less on the back orbit. You know what I mean? Just change the orbit 1 little bit, 1 step forward, and I've changed the entire center of gravity of the entire molecular structure.
Hey Gary, have you seen the movie Gravity? It was just made this year.
No, but I'll write that one down. Yeah, I did hear that somewhere, so I'll write that down.
Yeah, what you were just describing with like releasing a rocket from like not at the center of gravity, they do things like that in that in that movie. You'll probably enjoy it.
Okay. Yeah,
Well, I mean, it is like a universal theme park kind of movie, but I mean, it is pretty accurate in terms of how space works.
Yeah, I mean, they don't make any sound out there and stuff, so it's got that right at least.
Yeah, yeah. I always did Star Trek. You know,
Do you guys
everything.
know what the do you guys know what the speed is that space junk, everything that's floating up there? What do you guys know what the speed is?
27.684 miles a second. 27,000 miles a second. Yeah, that's it. 27,000
Yeah, I got no idea.
miles a second.
Well, you'd think all that space junk would be dangerous, but I guess because it's all traveling at the same speed, it's like, I think in the movie, one of the satellites gets blown up,
Dangerous.
and then it's all moving faster, so it's accelerated space junk.
Dangerous. It is dangerous. It is dangerous. That's why they stopped. Look, it's one of the reasons why they stopped doing the space shows, because they knew they couldn't go into any high orbits, because they knew they were going to get bashed by a fucking wrench.
The Japanese are developing a huge net. That's their plan.
Yeah, well, it's going to have to be made out of something damn strong. It's going to have to be able to catch awful small particles, too, but some of that shit the size of a BB, you know, moving at, whatever, 5,000 miles a second, and whatever the thing is, it's fast. Some of it's moving awful fast.
Have you heard of Mars One?
No, I've heard of that, whatever it is, Neptune or whatever. What's that, Pluto 1 or whatever that Pluto probe is. That one's going to be such a fail. I predict the Pluto probe will fail. No fucking chance they're going to fly by Pluto at really like 27,000 miles a minute or something. They're going to go fly by. No way.
I wonder. Mars One is this like private organization. They're gonna send some people to Mars on a one-way trip, and they're gonna live up there.
Yeah, whatever. They're not going to do any of that shit. They'll send corpses to Mars. Take a year and a half to get to Mars. You don't think the fucking astronauts are going to beat the shit out of each other before they get there? It ain't going to be
Apparently,
like
some
space.
guy that has like a guy with 4 kids and his wife is just gonna sign up and leave his kids.
Yeah, well, it doesn't
That's a
matter.
dick to
It
his
doesn't. It
kids.
ain't gonna happen, okay? Because it ain't gonna be like you're gonna send the space station to fucking Mars. No, they're gonna be in a tiny little capsule, okay? I mean, they're gonna be like constantly 2 feet from each other. There's no fucking way those people are gonna be able to spend a year in those tight of quarters. They're gonna find it too obnoxious.
They basically they want like the glory of it to just be like the first people on Mars.
So it doesn't matter. It ain't gonna happen. It's just like fucking Amazon's goddamn drone delivery. It's just bullshit. It's just propaganda lies. The guy's probably just selling tickets to whatever, some jerk-off park.
You got a lot of common sense, Gary. I will give you that. A lot of fucking intelligence and common sense.
Yeah, you'll give me that. Gee, oh wow. Wow, the trolls are giving out awards. Woo! I won some awards at the troll ceremony. All the trolls think I did a good job. Wow, I'm special. No, it doesn't mean much to me.
Mobutu!
Cool. Yeah. Wow.
If they gave you the chance, would you go to Mars, Gary?
No,
Gary, do me a favor. Don't fucking mock me, all right? Fucking asshole.
well, you deserve some of that. Don't you understand that? Don't give me what I deserve. No, I'm going to give you what you deserve. You got to earn it now, okay? You have worn out your friendly welcome, all right? So now you're going to have to re-earn civility.
There's a moon landing truther in the comments, and he really believes it, I think.
Well, whatever. Who cares? You're a retard.
My biggest argument against that, I mean, it's so stupid, but we were in a space race with the Soviet Union, and they never disputed any of it. So if we landed on the moon, they would have called us on that bullshit. I mean, we went back 9 more times. The Soviets didn't say a word.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's stupid theory. I mean, when you look at their evidence, you're saying, what, are you fucking retarded? I mean, one of the things was like the image in a reflection in the window, and it was like the sun wasn't supposed to be out, and you could see that it's, you know, whatever. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like so fucking off, and you're like, well, look at the reflection in the window, you stupid fuck. You know, I mean, it's just, you know, you're like, how? It's like it was like 9/11 truth or bullshit. It was just like, oh, come on. There's not fucking bombs on the bottom of the plane, you dumb asshole. It's a fucking shadow.
No. The plane was it was a hologram, Gary. It was all make believe.
Yeah, well, whatever. You just, you know, they get more and more desperate, and you're just, oh, please. It's just so stupid. I still can't believe that people would even fall for that. Oh, there's a giant match. You know, does it need to ignite the fire? Oh, yeah, you just plowed a plane full of the most volatile fuel on Earth into a building, and you need a match to light it? I don't think so.
And also on the moon, I mean, isn't there like a mirror that they placed on the moon where like you can shoot a laser at it and it'll come back and you can measure the distance?
Yes. Look, with a good telescope, you can almost see the shit on the moon. You can see the shit.
Gary, why did you ban me when I said that China was planning on the full-scale invasion of the United States?
But I don't banned you for just being you. I don't know if I did it for that reason, but that's just silly. That's why I banned you. It's silly. It's a waste of my time. You don't understand what time wasting is. I don't like people wasting my fucking goddamn time. Jeez. Yes, I mean, look, we only got so many seconds here. I don't have time to waste. Got all this quantum theory to work out. Gotta make a movie. Gotta wash my dishes.
Yeah, Gary, do you ever smoke Newports? Because I have extra Newports, and I was gonna throw them out, but I'll send them to you if you want them.
Throw them out? What are you, insane?
I mean, like,
Fuck you.
I got like 2 packs unopened.
Yeah, all right. Well, send them to me, you dumbass. Yeah, fuck. Newports are
All
okay. Right. Damn. It's like burning money. That was you know, there was that stupid Sleeping Beauty movie, and I watched it. Some guy told me to, and yeah, it's got naked chicks in it, but it's got really perverted sex in it. It's really depressing. But there's a scene where she's burning money.
That was nice. You tried to ban me, right? But you know, I guess that makes 2 of us. You know, but.
You know, why don't you just die already? Okay, get cancer and die. Jeez, troll. You know, and then, you know, there was just this stupid scene in the movie where she's burning the cash. You know, she's a prostitute doing this horrible shit, and she burns half the money. And like, what the fuck is that about? Who the fuck burns money? Yeah, I know. No, I bagged on the Joker pretty hard for that too. It's like, what the fuck? That is the stupidest fucking thing in the world. He just made all the rich people even richer by burning the cash, right? He made all their cash even more valuable. So he just made a bunch of rich people richer. Oh, well, what a wonderful terrorist he is. I mean, the stupidest thing to do ever. You want to do the rich a huge favor? Burn your money. So, anyway.
Have you ever seen No Country for Old Men?
Yeah, that was stupid. I mean, it's, you know, it's good. It's a good like joke movie, but yeah, it's just a joke movie. I mean, and I didn't like the ending, and you know, it was kind of a disappointing ending, right? I mean, I really was pissed when he killed the one woman who was just the wife or whatever, and she didn't do anything. It was like, why the fuck you fucking with her? I mean, that was bullshit. So I thought that was really lame. I mean, she already
apparently it has some message about nihilism, but all I got was it from it was like the killer guy is supposed to like represent nihilism or something. But I don't know, it just seemed like pointless to me.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, whether it was nihilistic or not, it's, yeah, fatalism maybe, but not nihilistic necessarily. But I mean, yeah, it was just, like I said, there was nobody, you know, this wasn't a good, it wasn't any fun to watch. You know, it just kind of like sucked.
I posted a movie on your website. You were looking for something that really highlighted like the drudgery and monotony of life. This is it. It's called Night Mother.
Night Mother? Oh dear.
Yeah, I posted the full movie, a link to it on your website.
Night Mother. Jeez. Doesn't sound good.
It's pretty good.
You know, I don't like titles with mother in them. Yeah, it's always, that's a bad word.
In favor of mothers. It's very antinatalist.
Yeah. Well, as people have been saying about a lot of these movies that suck.
Oh, give it a chance.
Yeah, right. Well, I've given a lot of movies a chance, and they're all kind of depressing the fuck out of me. I mean, I've never been more depressed. I've been watching movies for a week, and I've never been this depressed.
If you're not opposed to subtitles, there are a lot of other movies out there that are better.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying they're all kind of flawed.
True.
Do you play video games, Gary?
No, I don't, because that's just a huge waste of time. But I have been in the mood, but I really don't want to go back there.
What kind of consoles do you have?
I don't have a console. Fuck that shit. I used to have a PlayStation, but it, you know, I was back in the PlayStation 2 days or something, and it farted out, so that was the end of that.
To be honest, like the philosophical mediums in terms of like art and whatever and like really good movies, to me I've just been gravitating towards video games now. I mean, most video games kind of suck in that context, but I mean, there is these really hidden underground games that are kind of really good in terms of like having some sort of context for a story.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of simple when it comes. I just like the puzzle games. You know, I just did I like the Tomb Raider thing. I played that. I could just play Tomb Raider forever if they made enough rooms. I just go from room to room to room to room. That's okay with me. Solve the puzzle, go next room. Solve the puzzle, next room. But you know, yeah, I mean, it's all the same kind of themes, basically, right? I mean, just shoot something, figure out something, shoot something, figure out something, you know, blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying, it's entertainment, but I'm just saying there's no real value in it. I'm just saying it's kind of like wasting your life. So that's why I just don't do it anymore, because it's kind of just wasting my life. Yeah, well, Tomb Raider really was zen, I'll tell you the truth, though. The music was beautiful music. And you could just sit, like sometimes I just sit, you know, by the waterfall, and I just listen to the music and watch the water ripple, and I just like totally zen out and just be like, yeah, I'm Tomb Raider. It's pretty cool. Yep. Just sitting here watching the water. Yep. So I did like it for that. Yeah, I don't remember any Final Fantasy. Nope. I don't like games where you have to figure out what you're gonna wear and how big should my feet be, and yeah, I don't want to do all. I don't want to. I hate when I have to choose my uniform. Fuck that. I ain't doing that.
See, I love those kind of games.
If the game requires any preparation whatsoever, fuck it. I'm not playing it.
Yeah, I got Grand Theft Auto, you know, and I was gonna try playing the online part of it, and they make you like choose like what your parents look like and your grandparents look like, and I was like, fuck this, I'm not doing it. I just stopped playing right away. I didn't even start playing.
Yeah, no, I have no patience for that bullshit. As soon as I couldn't play any sports games for that reason. It was just, I hated the setup. I was like, fuck you, I'm not doing this.
I mean, for me, those role-playing games were just sort of tapped into my OCD, like my, like, obsessive compulsiveness, you know, where it's just like, I have to make everything perfectly right for my character. And like 5 hours in, I would always reset my character, so I would be like, oh man, I made a mistake, I need to go back, or something like that.
Yeah, well then, fuck you. That's it. Being an asshole is a stupid game to play. Why don't you just play the be an
Because you
asshole?
wish you got a different haircut or something, right?
Fuck that shit. Fuck all that shit.
Yeah.
No, fuck it, fuck it, fuck it, fuck it.
Well, I mean, it would just bug the hell out of me.
Yeah. No, I mean, the only other game I liked was like Formula Racing, and all you had to do was pick your... Yep, I picked that one. Zoom! Time to go.
Hey Gary, I knew you thought Melancholia was a mediocre movie, but there were some pretty good lines in there, right?
I have to think about it for a minute.
What about the scene where...
Bitch! Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I remember that where he says, "You can't handle the truth, bitch!" Yeah, that was a great line.
What about the scene where Justine says, nobody's going to grieve for the world, nobody's going to miss it? I mean, you've been making that point for years, right?
Yeah, but obviously people say shit like that when the world's coming to an end. It's really easy to say, right? It's really easy to say when, oh yeah, well, it's all over anyway, so it's really easy to say something shitty about life because, yeah, it's over and we're done, so yeah, it's real easy. I'm just saying it takes balls to say it when everything's still working. But, yeah, no, it's fine, but I'm just saying, like I said, in that context, what are you going to say? I mean, like, let's say if we really knew the world was coming to an end tomorrow, what would we say? Well, yeah, human beings did sort of suck, didn't we? Yeah, we really didn't do any of the shit we should have done. We never had the flying garbage cans. We didn't have any of the Dick Tracy watches. We didn't have any of that shit. We just fucking suck. Well, we sort of almost had the Dick Tracy thing, right? We just don't have it as a watch, but we got like a cell phone, so it's close enough. So, okay, we did that. We did the watch thing, but we didn't do the flying garbage can thing. But, I mean, we didn't do any of the Buck Rogers shit, really. What else? I'm just saying that, what's your commentary on the human species going to be? You're not going to say, oh yeah, it was so cool. We invented baseball and football and soccer, and we wasted trillions of dollars doing it over and over and over again. Oh yeah, that sucked. So, I'm just saying. But, yeah, I mean, look, that was all... I like the idea of just forcing people to come to grips with what their life is, and maybe the movie does some of that. Maybe I see it could have had more of that in there. I thought that would have been a very good element to have in there, is to have somebody reflecting on how they wasted their life. It would have been interesting to have some of those characters who'd say, like if her father or something said, I lived a really flamboyant and interesting life, but I didn't do a goddamn thing that was worth a damn. Or some sort of reflection like that. But all these people were very self-indulgent. They were very self-obsessed. Nobody seemed to really genuinely care about anybody. They only cared about them in some sort of, do you love me way. If you don't love me, then I don't love you. I mean, it was all so immature, emotionally immature movie, right? I mean, it was just crap.
I actually thought the first...
the ending, right? So the one bitch is saying to the other, one bitch says, okay, my husband's killed himself. They got the kid here. How do we do this end of the world thing? And so she says, well, maybe some nice wine and some Beethoven or whatever, right? And then the other chick mocks her and says, oh, I think that's a suck idea. No, let's go into the woods and whittle some sticks and put them in the shape of a teepee and sit on the ground. I mean, what the fuck, right? And they did this in the movie when they're playing music, right? So they played music in the movie, in the end of the movie, right? So even though the dumb bitch, blonde, she gets her way and they die under the stupid teepee, right? You're saying, Well, look, they're doing exactly what the other chick said, except they're not having the wine and they're not sitting in comfy chairs. So why not just sit in the comfy chairs and drink the wine with the good music? And because they've already conceded that the good music makes it more interesting, because the movie is basically playing them. Imagine if they didn't play any music at the end, you know, and they just get wiped out and there's no music, right? It would have sucked.
Well, the
So
whole teepee thing was just for the kid.
I know, but it was stupid. What do you mean it was just for the kid? The kid was, you know, the kid shouldn't even have been awake, right? Because the kid was dog tired just 10 minutes earlier, right? So they should have just let the kid sleep through the whole fucking thing. Why would you even wake the kid up?
I would actually say that I thought the main fault of that movie was just like the whole first half of it was a waste.
Oh, that first half was. I mean, I was sitting here swearing. I was actually swearing at the computer because I'm just saying, what the fuck is this? I don't want to go to this shitty fucking wedding. I hate fucking weddings. I hate fucking parties and all kinds of them. I don't want to be there. Will you take me somewhere else, please? So yeah, I was really pissed. 45 minutes of fucking family drama. Ugh, puke. We've all seen that a million times. Who isn't sick to shit of bullshit family drama?
Well, it just seemed to me that like the first half was almost completely unrelated to the second half.
And when you think about it in the context, right? Like later they let you know that, oh, the real context is where everybody knows the world's going to probably come to an end in a few days. And so then you think back to that wedding and you're saying none of these people would behave this way. Why would they spend the last moments of their life at some lame wedding? No fucking way. I mean, and the business guy was still doing business and talking about, yeah, we're promoting her to sales executive. And you're saying, why the fuck would you be doing any of that shit if there's like a 50% chance the world's coming to an end in 2 fucking days? And he's going to be sitting there talking about promotions and business? I mean, fucking, that was just so fucking lame. No fucking way that guy would be nowhere near that fucking shithole. He wouldn't be thinking about any of that crap. He'd be thinking about it, well, I wonder if I could send my money into space. I wonder, you know, they'll all be looking for some way to, like, you know, space-proof their car. What do you mean they didn't know that? How could they not know it? It was already in the newspaper. They didn't figure out that the world was coming to an end before she got married. They knew it before she got married.
So, Gary, what would you do if you knew the world was going to end in 2 days?
I don't know. Make a video? Yeah, make a really long video. Well, I'm going to start saying everything I wanted to say. Yeah, so I'll start letting everybody know just how stinky I think their assholes are. So I'll just go down the list of each person. I'll just talk about how I think your asshole is fucking got hemorrhoids on it and is really smelly and stinky. Yeah, I imagine I'll do some whoring around. So yeah, I mean, you know, I'm going to try to find wherever the best orgy is, and I'll go there. Yeah. Yeah, well, you just don't have a subpar orgy. That's all I'm saying. I'm making sure I'm going to a good one. Yeah, exactly. At the pool. Yeah, definitely have to do some pool. Crank the heater up. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, yeah. I don't know what a Naruto is. If I can't even pronounce a movie's title, then that's really going to be trouble, I think. I hate that. Oh, anime, forget it. Old fan, I don't know if old fan, don't tell old fan, oh, she's in here. But yeah, I saw some of that fucking anime movie she suggested. Holy shit, what the fuck? I couldn't watch it. I mean, I skipped through it, I mean, technically. So I watched probably 40 minutes of it, but I had to just jump. I was just like, oh, I can't watch any more of this. So I kept jumping to see if it would get better. And it just got sillier and sillier. And at the end, the whole universe is flying apart and people are floating in space and shit. And it's just like, what the fuck? But yeah, it was like the worst movie ever made. I don't even know what they were thinking. I mean, I didn't know the Japanese did a lot of drugs, but apparently they do a lot of drugs over there in Japan, because that is a fucked up movie.
You have no idea how wacky the Japanese get.
Yeah, and they're not even wacky in some kind of fun sexual way. It's like wacky in silly, stupid, bizarre, fucked up ways.
Well, I wouldn't say that, Gary.
Well, I'm just saying, it's just not, I just didn't see any, there was just nothing, there's no Gary food in that movie. There just wasn't any.
Yeah, I'm not a huge anime fan either, but I do like their video games.
You know, what a real great piece of anime that I forgot about, because I hadn't watched the movie in a while, but I saw Kill Bill again. And, they have this great anime scene in there, where the one of the characters is, her background's described through a little bit of anime. And it's really done well, this little murder scene and stuff, and it's a good little hunk of anime. It really makes the movie interesting. It's a great use of, different media in that movie. It was really a clever movie for a simple premised movie.
Gary, have you ever seen the Pearl Jam video clip, Do the Evolution?
Yeah, that's a great piece of, whoever thought that up was pretty clever. That's a really brilliant hunk of whatever the fuck that is. It's a brilliant hunk of whatever the fuck that is. I mean, the Tyrannosaurus eating the shark. I mean, that's just a great metaphor, right? The Tyrannosaurus grabs a shark out of the stream. You're just like, oh fuck, that's fucked up. So whoever thought, that guy was, whoever thought up that video was one smart fucker. The whole way the internet goes inside the guy, I mean, it was just on so many levels. It was just so clever, to use the chick, and it was just really clever. Really is a great piece of video. Yeah, well, Pearl Jam's not awesome, but the video is. Otherwise, their songs really suck, but that one's tolerable, and that video is just excellent.
The lyrics are pretty good for that song. Like, I'm not really a Pearl Jam fan, but that one song is just everything. It's got everything.
Yeah, they got it right. It's like somebody gets it right every once in a while. It's like Cheap Trick sucks, but they have one song called The Flame, and it's just beautiful. It's in a ballad, and their other shit is just that noisy crap, and it's like, wow, it's just amazing that every other piece of music they made I hated with a passion, but that one song is like, oh, they got me. That's it.
Have you ever listened to the band?
I'm gonna keep playing this game, Gary. That's your problem, but don't make it mine.
The troll, I just like to break in and be a harassment. I'm like a piece of shit that won't, like dog do on your shoe, and you can't get it out of the tread of your shoe. I'm proud to be a piece of shit. I'm proud to be a dog do piece of shit that's stuck in your shoe. I like being an obnoxious, rude motherfucker who doesn't pay any attention to civility and personal respect or anything else. He expects respect, but he gives no fucking respect. Oh, I was preaching. Let me finish my preaching next time. Sorry, Chaz, but damn it, when I'm directly preaching at the troll, do not interrupt my preaching.
I think he likes you.
Yeah, well, I think somebody should run him over. I'm not suggesting anybody in
He's in
particular,
love with you.
personal advice, but I just think it'd be a good idea if somebody ran him over.
Because the feeling is clearly not mutual.
Yeah, well, I'm not, I don't give a shit one way or the other. I'll talk to anybody, but I mean, why, to just be obnoxious about it, I mean, I don't know why these people can't let it go. Hey, so Piero, how'd your visit with Math Fails go? Did you both do some heroin and, fall off a rock?
Talking to him on the phone a couple times, and he's been here a few weeks now, and we couldn't get together and work hours and stuff, but then he's moved into town. But the thing is, I had to help my uncle figure out some stuff with his computer in Virginia, and then around 3 I was going to call him, which I did, and I haven't heard from him all week. Called him a couple times, so I don't know, it just didn't happen. I have a feeling maybe if I'm going to see him, it has to be when he calls, and then we're like, okay, how about now? You know what I mean? Like, planning for tomorrow might be an issue.
Yeah, well, he does seem to live kind of loose, so, But,
Yeah, he's in some gray area right now where he still has these, I could tell he still has some of those same kind of, what it is to me is these guys, if there's this idea, it's the cashify, you see it a lot, or I just reread Jonathan Livingston Seagull and this other book by the same guy, I think his name's Richard Bach or something, Illusions, and, it's all pretty good guru stuff, kind of like, you can be a guru, follow your dreams, don't take bullshit, be straightforward, things that are good, but then there's always that point, oh, and by the way, eventually you can teleport. And you'll fly. You know what I mean? It's like physics won't matter, and that's the part. Free energy, and you can manifest flowers to give to girls, and it's just bullshit at that point. It's like there is a guru thing of just following your own, not giving in because of the town you're in says you should believe this or that, or these are the better people. There's great advice there, but then they always want free energy.
I could make the same argument about Nietzsche, right? I mean, in a way, I would make the same argument that he takes it a step too far. This whole idea of being the best human you can be, like get the most out of yourself. Don't let your psychology get beat down. Don't get caught up in bad habits. Don't let your heart, override your brain. And lots of those kind of themes would be really useful to people, I think. But this whole nihilistic, Mega Man bullshit, if somehow you're going to conquer the world or you got some sort of bright future somewhere as a bunch of whatever, elitists, telling the darkies what to do, that's where it all goes wrong from my perspective. But I mean, that whole...
Didn't Nietzsche also have like an Untermensch who was like the underman? So I mean that's problematic because now he's made a lower class.
Well, I'm just saying that was sort of implicit in what he was saying a lot of the time is that there was this we concept, like we, the guys who know what we're doing, and the thems who don't know what they're doing, and that there would always be a we and a them. He always kind of made that implicit, but and without stating it overtly that there'd be an underclass. But yeah, I mean, it's sort of. I think he knew there'd still be garbage men, and there'd still be people shoveling shit in a ditch, and they wouldn't be one of his kind of people. But regardless, I'm just saying that it's just that aggressiveness of this idea that there's some way you can play this game and win. And there's no winning without taking either. We all win or we all lose, but there's no in between. Okay, you just can't win the game as an individual. It doesn't work that way. And his whole individualistic attitude is just such a fail, in my opinion. You gotta look at the whole game board. But I'm just saying, this idea, I like self-help. I like this personal actualization thing. I mean, as much as I hate Tony Robbins and all those kind of people, this idea of getting people to think outside boxes and to try to maximize their effectiveness in the world is really a positive thing. I mean, I wish I could do a lot of it. I can't, I can't get out of my own way a lot of the time. So I think it's very helpful if people can, take some control of their psychology. But if they're just going to take control of it to be assholes, well, that's no fucking good. I don't know about Nietzsche wanting to get laid. His opinion of women wasn't too sharp either. I mean, all these Germans did not like women very much. Yeah, well, he wasn't very popular. Obviously, his books didn't sell to the public. I mean, he was known in his own class as, as one of the we group, but I think his last book sold 60 copies or something. So it wasn't exactly, he wasn't the, people weren't ripping the stuff off the shelves or anything.
Apparently Nietzsche was gay.
Well, who knows?
I heard that
who cares?
one.
It's not, well, you can hear lots of shit, so who cares? Doesn't matter.
I heard somewhere that he believed he had Alexander the Great's blood or some egoist bullshit like that. Like he kind of compared himself to that.
Well, I'm just going to go by what he wrote, and I just care about the philosophies. I don't want to get too much into personal reasons why he had some perceptions. I mean, obviously there was probably some personal agenda in some of it, but I'm just saying I don't see any point in doing that personal shit too much. Because you can do it was like Schopenhauer, I don't think was much of a human being. I mean, he lived on mommy's money, and, he was just kind of an elitist prick. I mean, well, none of these philosophers were like people that had to go to work or anything. It's not like they, earned their life. They were all lived in privilege. They all had the fancy educations and all that shit.
And anyone who didn't have that privilege was a dirty peasant. In their eyes.
It's partly true. Well, I'm just saying it is partly true. I mean, obviously, if you had to earn a living, you didn't have much time to, read a bunch of shit and get educated. And you couldn't just turn the TV on, So it was a little harder to compete when you didn't have the time to do the work.
Yeah, I know, but I get this sort of perception that because they had that privilege, there was some innate superiority within themselves, like they were somehow.
Everybody thinks they've earned it, okay? Everybody does that. I think I've earned who I am, right? But obviously I didn't do anything, right? I'm just a product of, I'm a byproduct. I'm not a product. But I obviously have a sense that somehow I've earned my life, or I had to, somehow it's mine, and it's really not. If I ever did anything good in my life, I didn't do it good for any good reason. I did it because I had no choice.
Your brain told you.
Exactly. I didn't make that. I don't even know how people use Internet Explorer anymore. So fucking buggy.
Felt kind of slow in the sense, looking back, that I was gullible for the kind of bullshit, the selfish bullshit, using the, examples like you just gave, where somebody says, go in the water, and it's really because they were just accidentally fell in there and there were leeches, and now they think it'd be funny to watch you fall in the leeches. I was very slow and gullible to realize people thought that way, because that's never, I would be more like, oh, hey, that pond over there, we could go catch leeches. I would use my knowledge and be a little kid about it, but I didn't want somebody else to have that same misery, so I was pretty slow to realize people spend a lot of time tricking you into sharing their misery.
Yeah, well, I have to concede that I was a lot slower to pick up on malicious behavior. I just figured that people were subject to huge exaggerations, and they were just full of shit. But I didn't get the malicious thing until I was like a teenager, where I finally figured out, oh, I really can't, even if somebody's my friend, I can't trust them because they'll throw me under the car to get that chick. Okay, if I can get them a date with a chick, they'll throw me under the fucking car. So I had to figure that. It
Right,
took me
like
a while.
even if it's subconscious maliciousness.
Yeah, just the little shit where when some friend of yours didn't come to your rescue or something, because it make him look bad or something. It just revealed that, oh, he's not really my friend. He just uses me when I'm useful, and then when I'm not useful, yeah, he lets me die in the ditch. Oh, I get it. So it took me a while to figure that out.
I think there's a stage all over the place around middle school transitioning into high school where a lot of people find that they can shift their social group, and people you thought were one way have a chance to enter some social group, like just some popular kid, or for that matter some stoner, just somebody in a social group that they had a little unknown hankering for, and then boom, they disappear. It's like a guy that gets a girlfriend and you never hear from him again. It's a group of friends, and there's a lot of that, and there's a lot of kind of fucking people over on an emotional level, or just who you gonna hang out with, or even pranks. I saw a lot of people just play mean tricks on each other, because I was kind of out of that, because I had moved around from school to school, so I'd learned not to ever fit into a group because I went to 2 schools every year. And so I got to witness a lot of this when I finally started staying put, and how the group shift and how people fuck each other over, mostly emotionally, but also over girls and things that you could say, well, that actually was important. But whether anything comes of it or not, a lot of hurt feelings and people pushing each other's buttons and knowing each other's weak spots. But now I actually think people aren't as malicious as I, had discovered then. Now it's like, I think mostly, it's less than 50%. It's just that 10% maliciousness goes a long way.
Yeah, I think it's more. I think they're more malicious than I thought they were, but that's just the way it works, I guess. More conniving and scheming than I even thought. But yeah, the worst part of it is, you live with this social reputation you get, so when you don't, I didn't move around too much, and so, you're stuck with a social reputation, and once you get stigmatized, you're stuck with that stigma. But I did a lot of group migration. I mean, I was basically a freak, so I was part of the drug culture and all that shit. But I migrated. I mean, I hung out with nerds a lot because they were kind of trustworthy. I mean, I liked nerds. Just sucked. They were no fun. I mean, they weren't funny and they weren't useful in any way, but they were so needy that they were, you could be useful to nerds really easily because they were so socially outcast and such losers that you could do them a lot of good. So it sort of made you feel good because you could be useful to nerds and they would be appreciative. So that was kind of nice. But
the majority of the nerds are thankful also. I mean, if you show them a kindness, they're thankful. Unlike most people and all children, who have no thankfulness when you're nice to them. They just
Yeah,
take
that's what I'm
advantage of it,
saying.
and they just use you as a doormat. Nerds are not, and dorks and these kinds of people are not that way. They're thankful. They're like, hey, he was nice. They remember, hey, he brought the chips. And it's a minority of nerds that'll just take advantage in the way normal people mostly do. You know what I mean? It's the inverse proportion. So I agree, and I learned this, but it's funny because didn't you stay put? I mean, you grew up in that town you're in, right? So you had the same kids, a few school changes, but really there's a big current, a river of kids your age that you knew your whole life, right?
Well, I mean, I did from 6th grade on here, so yeah, so you know, I mean, that
Oh,
was the
it was
great
sixth
part.
grade. That's right, because you were in New Orleans and other places. So sixth grade. What
Yeah,
is
so
that?
it
12?
was actually
11?
yeah, it was a yeah, it was 12, well, 11 years old, yeah, 11, 71, yeah. So I was 11. But yeah, it was really a perfect time for a transition for me because I really had a dark period, you know, when I was 8, 9, 10 were really bad years for me. So it was really a good change. So it sort
What
of
were your
saved me.
experiences moving? Because see, I was the new kid from like first to eighth grade. I was twice a year. The new kid at the beginning of the year and the new kid that comes in the middle, you know. And so what was your experience moving? Because I know a lot about what it's like. I mean, I learned that a lot of things from that.
Well, I just liked the fact that you could start over. So that to me, the experience was is that
Right,
now
exactly.
I didn't have the liability. Like when the other school, I was a kid who came from Louisiana, so I had an accent. I was a hillbilly, so I was stuck with all that reputation. And so when I got to start over, I didn't have an accent anymore. You know, I didn't have all those liabilities, and so people could take me for what I was now. But I was still a bit of a huckleberry, so I still ended up getting, you know, knocked into the silly, you know, I was kind of the class
That's where
clown.
your country sensibilities come from, where you stop and look at the bugs.
Yeah, well, yeah, so I mean, I just, you know, I still got
Little
labeled,
Louisiana kid.
yeah, I still got labeled, I was still called Nature Boy, you know, and Tarzan, son of Tarzan, and people would call me that and shit, you know, so I still got a lot of that crap, but it wasn't nearly as bad as it was, you know, just because you get this new start. So I like the idea of a new start, but obviously at 6th grade, you're still a dork, so you still get fucked up. So it would have been even better, I guess, if I moved a second time before going to high school. It would have been good to have another shot at it, but you know, it was like I was always I just was always in a very negative position. I mean, I was the smallest kid in the class, the youngest kid in the class. You know, I was outnumbered. You know, and I had the biggest mouth.
These schools, what happens is all the kids, they'll have a little set of stereotypes. So enough of the kids know of some stereotype, like, you know, a huckleberry or a country boy or whatever it is, and they'll fit you into that. And the more times you start over, the more you become an individual and you don't fit any group, right? And so then you're naturally going to be in the outcast, or like you were saying, the underground, which is where all the outcasts go. And I, you know, it's like if you, in my case, changing a lot of times just distanced me from all groups, because everywhere you go, they have some kind of nice, or by being mean, you know, everybody has some sort of fucking agenda that is so peculiar in every school. Like, I went so rapidly that I couldn't have changed as fast as what people thought of me. You know, in one school, I'm just a rebel, the druggie would be, you know, I didn't do any drugs. I mean, I'm saying a kid, and I'd flip people off, and I'm a, you know, just gutter. The next time he thinks he's too smart. The next time, you know, and he's too proper. You know, just randomly from one thing to the other, because it's all about what people are actually going through. It has nothing to do with how you are almost. It seems like it does. You know, like you like nature, and so they call you that, and you go, that must be true, but it isn't really. It's
Yeah, well, it's just that
people are funny.
it's having the intelligence or the understanding to be able to manipulate that. And I just, you know, to me, it'd be really great if you could go in knowing what was going on, you know, and have the gear to play the game, because I just didn't have the gear to play the game. I mean, I could have played it so much better, and I just didn't play it very well. I mean, I played into the I played into the hands of the evildoers, so to speak. But I mean, you know, it's just those little things you just never get by. Like I remember in my freshman year in high school, some fat chick gave me the nickname Mushface. And it stuck, you know, and so everybody just called me Mushface. Nobody called me, you know, I didn't like my name anyway, but I just, you know, I like to be called something other than Mushface.
Yeah.
And then they, you know, and then
It's
I
funny
said,
how good kids are at pushing buttons, you know.
yeah, you know, and then the other one I got was Maggot, because I said, you know, there was a biology movie and it had a bunch of maggots, and I said, ooh, maggots! You know, I said it out loud. And so I got stuck with the label Maggot, you know, and so that was another great nickname, you know.
Well, I mean, to be honest, like, I mean, I just finished high school a year ago, and I mean, I think bullying has gotten a lot less worse in a way. I mean, especially with girls. I mean, girls can be incredibly nasty to each other. I mean, in public school, like, girls were the nastiest to each other, but I mean, in high school, it almost seems like they come to some sort of truce. Like, they realize how much they can hurt each other, and they're just sort of like, okay, we just do not hurt each other. Under no circumstances do we make fun of each other's appearances or whatever. And that kind of bullshit. I mean, it still happens. It happens.
I don't think that's reality, but okay.
No, but I mean, like, of course everyone's like, oh man, that chick's super fat and or whatever, but I mean, I don't think girls actually say it.
Well, I'm just saying, I mean, I know
some sort of...
just got out of high school too, and you know, these chicks are fucking vicious. So, but I mean,
yeah.
I just don't see the, you know, they're also competitive. I mean, girls have gotten into sports and a lot of other shit. They've gotten very male in a lot of ways. You know, they have picked up a lot of bad male habits. Girls have. I mean,
yeah, and that's true, but I mean, like, there is this sort of,
a lot more competitive. I mean, they were always competitive over guys, but they've gotten competitive over everything now. You know what I mean? They're always trying to outbitch each other.
But I mean, with this whole, like, social media and the body acceptance movement, but...
Well, yeah,
I don't know.
That shit is real. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't know where you went to high school, like Faggoty Pants High or something. I mean, what are you talking about?
I mean, I went to school in Canada, so I mean, Canada might be different than America. I mean, Canadians are kind of pussies, but...
Canada. Oh, you're talking about Canada. Jesus Christ. Don't even... We're talking about America here, boy!
Well, we're talking about reality. All the Canadians are fat. So what the hell?
Yeah, we're talking about places where when it gets out of hand, somebody gets shot.
No, dude. Canadians are the skinniest women. Canadians are 10 times more skinny than fucking Americans. But I mean, we are kind of pussies. Like I do concede that.
Don't Canadians have, like, just as many guns or even more guns than Americans per capita? And they don't even kill each other with them?
Yeah, we have...
How pussy is that?
30 million guns and a population of 35 million people.
Yeah,
we have 30 million guns and a population
How many
of 35.
deaths?
Yeah, like
almost
Americans divided by 1 or
Chicago.
2, you know, like...
How many black people?
Why do you have the guns? Why even have the guns? You guys aren't even going to kill each other. It's like such a waste.
No, they have to shoot
Man, it's those
bears.
polar bears.
But whatever.
Yeah, right.
I'm just saying Canada isn't real anyway. It's not a real place. There's no point in using Canada as an example of anything. But look, you gave it away right there, right? Just because I made the fat joke, and what did you do? You got all defensive, right? So you got all the, oh, we're 10 times thinner than you Americans. So, yeah, so he's talking about how everybody's gotten all comfortable with the fatty chicks, and oh, no one picks on the fatties, and no one does this, and he's showing his own paranoia about, oh, you dared to call us fat. So you're not even comfortable being called fat. Come on, you're using it as a complaint.
Well, I mean, I'm not fat, but I mean, there is bigger girls in all countries, okay, Gary?
Failed that you're full of fucking shit. Okay?
Bureau officially debunked you.
No, Gary did most of it.
So.
I just declared.
Yeah, well, whatever. He's done.
The word Canada really did most of the work. Yeah, Canada. Yes, it's nice. There's no bullying. Fine, we know. Stop rubbing it in. Shut up.
Well, no, no, no.
Take
Like,
your guns and shoot
there is bullying, but I mean, like, there just seems to be this consensus among girls
Gary,
that's like, oh man, we can hurt
Gary, you
each
should
other
start
emotionally
debunking
just as
theories
much.
as content for your channel.
Actually, to be serious for just a second, I've noticed the American-style bullying, and we're going to have these school shootings, they are going to go up to Canada, and this whole Canada is sweet thing is not actually going to last. I don't think, right?
No, but I mean,
we
Canada
started
kind of
seeing
sucks.
it, so it's funny, but really compared to America, I think the bullying in American schools, it's hard to say. I'm in Hawaii. It's definitely really bad still, and it's racial bullying. So, I mean, I think in America, everywhere I've ever heard of, and the first-hand experiences in California and Colorado and Hawaii, it's terrible. It's just like the prisons, like cruel and unusual education. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
Okay, but can I say something here, Gary? I mean,
What?
like, even like the super hot chicks, like the 10 out of 10 girls in my school are super, super insecure. I mean, like, they think they're just as ugly as the super fat chick next to them and all that, so I mean, they sort of have this consensus that...
Have you heard of anorexia? I mean, women's self-image is always...
Yeah, totally, and I totally understand that shit, but I mean...
Not new, okay? It's not new. Trust me, okay?
Well, in California, even the women that are ugly think that they're sexy. That's what we've done over there. It's like they all think it. They don't. None of them have that self-esteem problem, and it's like that in itself becomes a problem.
Yeah, there was always a hot chick that committed suicide or something, okay? I mean, it's just like, there's always some jock who had everything, he commits suicide. There's always people who are perfectionists who always found life insufferable. So even if they were perfect, they weren't.
You know how they say, like, just if you feel confident and act confident, like especially just some girl that's a little bit like overweight by the TV standards or even by regular standards, they can pull it totally off if you're confident, and it's so true. I mean, really, people react, and when you see somebody attractive with somebody that's not so attractive, and if you analyze it, you will find out the unattractive person is super confident and is like, yeah, I'm a person, and yeah, my body isn't perfect, but I'm fine with it. And those people are attractive to people that are objectively or whatever, mainstream attractive. It's, and it's so ironic. Everybody is like, has a self-esteem problem, when, like, that's what other people don't like about them, is that they have a self-esteem problem.
Yeah, well, I don't know how long that works, though, that faking it thing either, though. Because that
No, I'm not saying you can fake it. You can't fake it. You can't fake it. No, I'm talking about people that really feel that way. Like a heavy-set... Heavy-set women are perfect example, the Mae West type. And if they just think they have it, some guys might be like, yeah, right, no, you're ugly. But they do not have trouble finding people, including people of all different looks and types,
I don't think they win, okay? They end up divorced and alcoholics. So I'm just saying I don't think they pull that off.
Interesting. I mean, I think they can. I think there are people that are honestly confident in themselves, and that is attractive.
Honestly, I think they honestly end up drug addicts and a lot of and completely they have their lapdog and they feed it turkey all day.
Well, I think you must be thinking of someone that shouldn't be confident, right? So if someone is confident when they shouldn't really be confident, and then they play the stock market and lose all their money, then they become, they lose everything. And that is definitely true with a lot of these confident people. So it depends on whether they are confident in things that are going to pay off.
That too much ego is obnoxious. So I'm just saying that in the end, that over ego thing, okay, works to get you in the door, but it doesn't work in the long term. That's what I'm arguing, okay? I'm saying that, yes, confidence is attractive, but it's not durable in a relationship. So That's the problem with it. Those become the women who think they're entitled to this and they deserve that, and they get all that kind of psychosis. I'm just saying reality isn't going to placate that attitude.
Well, see, I'm sort of from the side of not being that way, and even though I'm opinionated, you know, it's like, be humble. What do you want to do? And doing what the group or the other person votes for. And I have noticed that there's this reaction to people that are confident, including people that are just, you know, unrealistically confident.
I would be a little bit skeptical, is all I'm saying, is getting too involved with people who don't accept some social standards in terms of defining their own ego comfort. So if you're not a little bit humbled by the fact of your social standing and you're going to pretend that it doesn't matter, I think those people can be train wrecks. That's my statement on it. I mean, this is all subjective, personal, anecdotal experience kind of bullshit, but I'm just saying, yeah, I don't think it works. I think you have to be humbled by realistic perceptions. You have to be able to see yourself in some sort of realistic context, and some of these people aren't.
Uh-oh.
Lost him.
So, Piero, what do you think about determinism?
I think Obama's speech on the NSA was a big load of bullshit. I've never seen such a series of lies, and he starts off likening what they do to the Sons of Liberty, which is just ironic because really he's the British, and he would be fucking sending the NSA to spy on the Sons of Liberty and arresting them before the Boston Tea Party could occur. So, is that what you asked? No. What? Oh, determinism. I think I can determine things better than most other people.
Brilliant.
No, I think that I obviously do not believe there is a determinism. I believe that there's an indeterminism, but there's also boundary conditions, and things can be determined within boundary conditions. And that I'm a little tired of emphasizing the lack of determinism when the real problem is that people don't seem to think that, they seem to think that their opinion matters, and they don't say they believe in relativism, but they act like it. Like if they're batshit insane and you're sane, that obviously you guys should compromise with an idea that is half batshit insane and half sane. And no, I mean, so I'm kind of actually into the determinability of things, even though nothing is, you know, there's no absolute determinism. Obviously, nobody really thinks that there is.
Well, I mean, it all depends on the context. I mean, there's no determinism in the sense that we can never understand it, but I mean, in a theoretical sense, there is a determinism. But I mean, we will never be able to,
You'll never be able to determine something. Yeah, exactly. You seem to have gotten what I was saying, is that even the people that believe in determinism, generally, if they're intelligent, they'll also they'll have to say, you know, that doesn't mean I could determine it, you know, like there's an infinite number of facts. But that's all indeterminism
yeah, I mean,
is
like, we
about,
can't
is
plug
that you can't
everything
figure it
into a
out.
computer and model the universe.
Right.
I mean, like, we can't put all these equations into a computer and I can see a million years in the future or whatever.
Exactly. So that's all I meant. I mean, obviously there is theoretically an idea of it, and I think it's a useful idea because there's this idea of boundary conditions. You can figure out things. You know, just because facts aren't determinate doesn't mean that you can't, you know, put bounds on them. You know, that I was born within the 13 billion years that the universe has existed. Yeah, I wasn't born before the universe, and if you don't know when I was born, you can determine ahead of time, predetermine that it was sometime in the last, between now and the last 14 billion years. and even less because of other things you know. So there is determinability in it's these boundary conditions. And my problem with a lot of the concepts is it's just the attitude. It's not that, it's like there's this idea in philosophy that when you analyze something, you should cut it down into these abstract thoughts. You want to cut like a butcher at the joints, or, at the right place where the cut is clean and you've actually separated something that is a whole into parts where it cleaves well. And I don't think that classical ideas about determinism are good. I think that that kind of determinism doesn't exist. And it's kind of like free will or unfree will. Both of those are bad ideas. The will isn't free or unfree. There's power and energy. There's physical transformations, and there's other ways to think about that stuff.
Have you seen the video where Machio Kaku says that, like, quantum physics proves that there is free will or something?
Yes, I've seen it, and I hate that guy now.
He doesn't even, like, explain why. Like, he doesn't give an argument, but I'm just wondering, like, I've heard people say the same thing, so what do you think about that?
Well, even if they think there's free will, don't they acknowledge that there's still all these like major influences, like external influences that you have no control over, they can still affect you?
Right, on a psychological level, exactly, yeah.
But they say that like, there's some things that you can't control, but they think, like, a heroin addict can, like, choose to not do heroin if they try hard enough.
Well, those are the interesting questions, actually, is like, well, how hard do you have to try, and how much is by your metabolism, and how much can you change your metabolism, and can you have a treatment that changes your metabolism that allows your willpower to be strong enough, and so on and so forth. So the thing about quantum mechanics is I do think that there's a relationship between quantum mechanics and will. And I do think even separate from quantum mechanics, and if you look at the history of thinking about will before quantum mechanics was on the scene, will happens, and if it's an illusion, fine, like the sun rising, it's an illusion. There's still some phenomena, right, that word is talking about. Maybe the sun isn't rising and the earth is spinning, but something's going on there. There is a phenomena. It's not like, spring. It's its own phenomena, will. And frankly, it bears a lot of resemblance to the way things work in quantum mechanics. Observer effects, the role of information, and the fact that more than one thing seems possible, even though one thing always happens in the end, or you could say one thing. So it's not just like that quantum mechanics is strange and will is strange, so maybe they're related. But a lot of mystics use it that way. They don't understand quantum mechanics. But I do think that the brain is a quantum computer, and that there's a good chance we'll find out that quantum computers are at the basis of life, and that, yes, that's where the subjective experience comes from and our sense of will comes from. And if it's all an illusion, fine. I still think that there's a good chance that a big part of what we experience is because of quantum mechanics. Well, what's anarcho-primitivism? Is it like anarcho-capitalism, except for that you go back to nature, or what is that? I think I might have heard of it, but I assume it's a communistic anarchism where you go back to agriculture society or something. Yeah, I'm not for that. But I also am not for what I'm for. I mean, I don't believe anymore in what I wish would happen. I think that it's been superseded by what is going to happen. And on the one hand, humans are going to get Borg-like and more organized into a superorganism where they don't really think for themselves. And some of us can be the kind of bacteria that live in the human body and depend on the human body, which of course there's like 10 times more bacterial cells, they now know, in your body than of your own cells. They're tinier, so they don't weigh more, but there's a higher number of them. And that's how it's going to be. Humans are going to be living in society, and some of us are going to depend on society to get rid of our garbage and our waste and whatnot.
Seriously. It's a
but
pretty
we won't
easy
really
question. You should be able to
part
answer it.
Just like the bacteria that co-live with us.
How
They
does
don't
anyone
have our
know
genes. They don't come from the same egg, but they are given to us by our mother, just like our genes are, and our father, and we live with them. And humans are going to be those two kinds. Some of them are going to be huge conformists like the Borg, and will just continue to be slaves of fashion, and whatever's popular music is the kind of music they like. What a coincidence. And so on and so forth. And a small percentage, 10%, will be individuals that still try to benefit off of, body temperature and things like that.
Well, I mean, I think you're right in a sense, but I mean, I just disagree that humanity will last that long. I mean, I just don't see the universe almost tolerating us chemically for us to reach that results.
Well, okay, let's say that it takes millions of years to get to the level I was just talking about, because often I'm just thinking of the influence here and now and metaphorically. But let's take it literal, like H.G. Wells's time machine, and we actually, we look different, and the evolution. So that's at least, it's 6 million years between us and chimps, a chimp-like state. So that would be hundreds of millions of years before you change. So would we live that long? Yeah, I don't know. That's a toss-up. But part of my thinking on that is like, what about the fallback? Let's say we nuke the fuck out of each other and we poison each other and we create killer robots that keep off of solar energy, keep killing humans till they break down. God, I just see humans surviving. We survive in the snow. We survive in the everything. I just see.
Yeah, I know, but we would just
we've got
evolve
down to
more
what, a couple
bug-like.
thousand people, they say.
It would just become more bugs.
Oh, I see. Well, I do think we're going to be like bugs, because what I'm saying is kind of we're going to become like ants, where ants act on the intelligence level of the hive. They're so, and yet I've watched a lot of ants. They're not as conformist as we might think. I mean, individual ants just go off and do crazy shit. I mean, they don't stay in that ant line, but most of them do long enough for it to be like a hive mind. So I think, yeah, we will become like bugs, but we're going to be like human bugs, and with a hive that travels to other stars and shit, And I don't really want to be part of that. I always want to be part of the individual. I'd rather be part of the bacteria, like, well, let me just make proteins for you guys. I'm good at that. And we'll cooperate and agree to disagree on the Borg-like conformity. You know what I mean? But I do think it's going to happen. I always wanted, humans to figure out, no, we're all going to become individuals. But that's just not how nature and evolution goes. I mean, the slime mold that has something similar to veins turns into, the sponge, which turns into these plants, which turns into Venus flytrap with motor functions that are faster in animals. And so the next step is that humans are just cells in this Borg-like super being, hive being, and if you don't like to be a part of that, then you're just going to have to learn how to be the bacteria that lives in the gut of that thing. Or, yeah, be an anarcho-primitivist
Well, I mean, I
and
definitely
just
do
become a
agree.
slime mold out in the wild.
Yeah, I think it's more likely that
I mean, like, part of my
AI and
frustrations
microbots are
happen
just
to
going to
be with
take
the people
over
that
and
think that
essentially
we're going to evolve into something
render
more
people extinct.
elegant and grander, which I sort of completely disagree with. I mean, ants ants haven't really evolved in the past maybe million years. I mean, they're still ants. They've reached this critical point in which they've been able to survive, right? I mean, they haven't been more elegant or intelligent in the past million years, in a sense.
Well, what do you mean? It's like with humans, we haven't gotten more intelligent, so they say, in like the last 100,000 years, right? But we've developed language and steam engines, and we've changed a lot. And I think ants have done the same thing. Like when the ants that are tending aphids, which is now many kinds of ants do this tending of these other bugs and milking them. That happens in the last hundreds of millions of years, and you know what I mean? They're just even roaches are a perfect example. They haven't changed really at all, and I don't think their style of living has changed. But all that really means is they're putting the effort into the fine tuning. They're tuning chemical like antibodies and just subtle things that are just they already have such a good solution, and I think that that's the way with ants. But let me add this though, is that I think saying that we would become Borg-like and a super creature, it's meant as an insult, like the Borg. I mean, it's not supposed to be good. I'm a big, I grew up in the late 20th century, and I'm all about the individual. James Dean, So to me, I mean, I took that as bad news. That really, when I was in my 20s or teens, I would have wanted to defeat this conformity. People that want to conform, and I just don't think now, though, that that's realistic. I think the people that like to conform are going to, and they're going to continue to be in the majority, and the reason is because there's this force in evolution that creates superorganisms, and that's all we are, is a bacteria colony that's very sophisticated. So I just think it has to happen again, and the only good news would be that not everybody has to become that way. Like all multicellular forms are eukaryotic life, and that's what protozoas are. The bacteria aren't, but the protozoas and stuff, I mean, that solution that allowed the communication, that allowed the superorganism, it did not remove the ability to be an individual. Single-celled life forms that have that ability also exist as single-celled life forms. So if that's what suits you, you'll be able to continue that.
Whatever, you're full of shit, Piro. Yep, full of shit, full of shit, full of shit, full of shit.
Well, I was just saying that we are bacteria with brains.
I'm smart enough, and doggone it.
Stop that. Anyway,
Gary, you always you abandon this idea that we're bacteria with brains. I mean, I carry on with that, and you just don't seem to. We're bacteria with brains, right? No?
Yeah, but the whole point is we're bacteria with a scheming device, okay? The brain isn't being used to develop our ambitions or our desires. Our brains are being used to fulfill our ambitions and desires.
But I was saying that.
Well, I know, but the bacteria doesn't have any very good ambitions. Bacteria have stupid ambitions.
No, what I was saying, though, is that society is a real thing, and it's going to become a hive because that's what bacteria do. They make slime mold, and they make mammals.
Well, I know, but the colonization thing, that they end up being slaves, right? Our liver is a slave. Our liver isn't free. It's a bunch of waves. Well, I'm just saying, is that a good thing? No, it's not a good
No,
thing.
I'm not. That's what I was just explaining. It's not as a good thing. For example, with the eukaryotic life, right? All plants, us, we're all eukaryotic. They have certain cellular, mechanisms. And the mitochondria is one of them. So protozoa are also that. Well, guess what? Our cells live that 7 years or whatever they're famous for, and it's a programmed death like fucking Logan's Run, whereas protozoa, as far as we know, they'll live millions of years. All they have to do is keep having sex every couple years, and they will keep living. So
Wait a minute. No. That's bullshit. Okay, there's no evidence that they have an unlimited lifespan. I've never heard of that. No, that's not true.
well, they've kept them for decades, and the point is, you can dye them and identify these things. And if they have to keep having sex, and then they will keep cloning themselves, and they will stay alive.
Well, I'm just saying, a clone is not the individual, okay? Obviously, they all clone themselves. All bacteria are basically clones.
One of the two clones, well, it splits in two copies. One of those two is the original.
Well, I mean, yeah, you can say it's the original, but you still can't demonstrate for... I mean, obviously, our membranes, or lots of the hardware of our cells is antique hardware, okay? Okay, you could trace
I don't
it back...
want to oversell it. I'm just saying that if it doesn't... there's two kinds of sex. Like most bacteria just splits in two, mitosis. But eukaryotic life, like we are, there's also in the protozoa sex, where they just hook up and they don't clone, they just share genetic material. It's obviously a precursor of what the sperm and egg are doing, right? And they just swap some. If they keep doing that, the sex part, where they swap some genes, they will be able to keep cloning. If they don't, they die off. In the body, however, in the human body, there's apoptosis, where the cells are programmed to die, like Logan's Run, and that is the dark side of if you're in some superorganism with a constant temperature and if you're pampered.
Obviously, there's no reason to believe that the cloning would be necessary for maintenance of your existence. So I'm just saying they die because they're also programmed to die. So I just don't believe that that's necessarily true. I think there are elements of their...
They're not.
Well, I'm just saying, you're saying they're not. I'm saying they probably are. But whatever. It doesn't really...
Okay, but I don't want to disagree on... Maybe you're right. But what I'm saying is what they've seen is if they are able to have the sex version, then they keep going on. They don't shrivel up and die. Now, one of the activities they do is mitosis, where they split in two. That's just something they do if they live. But even when they're not doing that, they continue to live, whereas if they don't swap genes with some other cell, they will die after a couple years. And they definitely can live longer than a human body cell.
Well, I'm just saying...
And they don't have apoptosis.
Isn't any kind of comparison anyway, okay? Because we know that death was something that had to be invented really early in the genus of life, okay? That the only way you could have reproduction was to have death. So life had to create...
We discuss if that's true. Maybe you're right. I see...
It had to invent death to avoid the consequences of reproduction. So that's one of the built-in structures that's really antique.
Let's talk about that, though.
All organisms. Well, what I'm saying is what happens when you combine chromosomes is that you create new endings on the genes, all right? It's the endings on the genes that are the things that cause the aging process. And so what I'm saying is that when you create the clone will have a new life because it gets a new chunk of genetic code, and the new gene has new endings on it. So it'll last longer. So I'm just saying there is a renewing effect that happens through the process. I mean, I'm just saying...
Let's discuss this.
Aging and death is a very old genetic function. Very old.
But it doesn't go all the way back to the beginning of life, I don't think.
It goes back to, I'd say it goes back all the way to like the first 1,000,000 years. All right, because the first, think about it, the first.
Think about it, Gary. Let me give you some examples, some arguments that you'll probably know. Okay, you know, some of these animals and fish, some fish that just grow bigger and bigger as long as the pond they're in is big enough, and they live longer and longer and just grow bigger and bigger and wait for nature to kill them. A lot of primitive life forms and worms, they have these kind of characteristics. Single-celled life forms, often have that characteristic. They let the environment take them out. But if they
There's no immortals, Piro, okay? The oldest living things on Earth are trees.
Right. No, of course there's no immortals because eventually nature will take you out. But
No,
we're talking about programmed death. Like, why do you and I have similar lifespan?
No, that's just not true. They won't.
I'm not saying what's true. I want to discuss the ideas.
Yeah, but the idea is that those things have re-evolved to a new environment. The point is that they originally evolved to be mortal because the mortality was built into the most earliest genetic function. You had to create death to create reproduction. Obviously, the first organisms constantly overpopulated the environment. They suffocated themselves, and they died in their own shit. Okay?
Exactly.
Right, so they had to have
Maybe we agree. Here's what happened.
To grind up the old versions because they had to make room for the new versions. That's how evolution works. The only way you could have fast evolution is you have to have a lot of mutations, you have to produce a lot of offspring, and that means you have to kill the parents.
Right, but you said the first million, and I think it's the last, you know, billion, because out of the 13 billion, we had these single-celled life forms until eukaryotic life came along, and then we started to have multicellular ones, and that's the last half billion, right, or something.
No, but the algae had to have a mortality because they themselves had to moderate their own exponential.
Let's not disagree. Let me just ask you questions. Okay, I don't want to disagree yet. What I'm saying is, okay, you're saying the algae had to have it. I agree it had to have it. Why? Because it started off just growing like algae grows, and they all ate each other's shit and died off. So the ones that were smart enough to commit suicide on a schedule, actually the mathematics is such that, well, great, we had a higher youthful, healthy population, and so they had to eventually learn it, but I actually think it took, you know, 5, 10 billion years, and it's just the last billion or so that we've had multicellular life that really is, you're right, if you were talking about mammals and stuff, I'd say it's all about dying.
No, it's all about dying in microbes because the whole point of evolution, the whole way evolution works, okay, is to reward aggressive replication, aggressive mutation. You want
Gary, you're talking about rewarding death. You're talking about evolution rewarding suicide.
No, Piro, you're talking about evolution rewarding replication. The idea is to create a copy. That's the function of your existence, is to create copies of yourself. The function of your existence is not to live forever.
Wait. Okay, let me ask you this. So you're saying that it's not rewarding long life. Okay, you're saying that you want to die because since it's rewarding replication, dying gets you out of the way and makes the replication more successful, giving it more room to replicate.
Your modified enhanced genetic code is the thing that's important. Enhanced genetic code is the only thing valued by evolution.
Well,
so enhancement...
All we disagree on is how long it took to figure that out.
Well, I'm just saying it had to happen early because the life would have killed itself. It would have gone through too many extinctions, and one of those extinctions would have finished it off. I think there's lots of circumstances. Yeah, I think it was one of the biggest hurdles that life had to get through was the initial phase where it changed the atmosphere. It replicated so aggressively that it created an atmosphere of shit. Okay, the first microbes created the oxygen in the atmosphere. They were suffocating in that oxygen.
That's used anyway. That's the ancillary.
And if they didn't evolve to eat that shit, they would have died. So the first living things would have died off, suffocated in their own shit, if they hadn't evolved to eat their own shit. So they had to learn how to eat their own shit to be able to survive into the future.
Yeah, Gary, why are you even giving me like these ancillary arguments? I mean, this isn't even shit that we should even be talking about. What the fuck?
Apparently,
Shut
Piro
up, Ben.
talk about it, so still big deal, Bandit. I mean, I talk about a lot of different things. I mean, it's not totally uninteresting. Okay, the mechanisms of evolution, so it's relevant to that subject. So it's worth talking about. That the primary function of evolution, the primary function of evolution is to perpetuate the existence of enhanced genetic code. It's not just your code; it's enhanced code. Okay, that's the real objective. Is for you to produce offspring that are better than yourself. That's how evolution works.
Basically, you and I agree that the mechanism is that now, and you have to get out of the way for offspring, and you need offspring to perpetuate, and a bunch of old people trying to make it immortal is not as good a chance as just new offspring that are young. So, I mean, really, all we would disagree on is I think that life was stupid and learn the hard way. But, you know.
You're missing the key point, though. The point isn't that they're just young. The point is that they're better. The offspring.
Changing. They're not always better. Sometimes they're worse. It's like it goes both ways.
That's the whole point of evolution, is to make 1 million shitty copies and make one enhanced copy. So for the one enhancement in the Nietzschean kind of mold, you sacrifice 1 million babies that you kill, so you can have the one little one that has a super double antenna or something. So the one good enhancement, the one good error, okay, is kept, and the price tag is you annihilate, you torture 1 million offspring to have that one enhancement. That's how evolution works, and it's insidious. It's an insidious blueprint of let me destroy 99% of life, let me kill it, wipe it out, destroy it, so I can create one enhancement in the genetic code. So for that one tiny enhancement, you pay a huge price in failures. You have 1 million failures for one enhancement.
You know what, I was just realizing, Band, I was curious what you thought about Obama's NSA speech.
Well, to be completely honest with you in the room, I really do not have any dog in that fight, and I don't care. Sorry.
Yay, exactly my opinion. Yeah, who fucking cares?
Yeah. I mean, really, it's true. Who cares if they spend $60 billion a year on secret government?
You know, if the government wants to get you, they walk up to your front door, they throw a bag of cocaine in your living room, and they throw you in jail, okay? So if they want to get you, they don't need facts. They don't need evidence. They just need a reason. So you're fucked. If the government's out to get you, you're done. You're fucked. So don't worry about whether they have evidence or not. It just doesn't.
I'm not worried about that. No, I'm not worried about that. I just don't like that they spend $60 billion a year getting it.
I don't think they spend anything like $60 billion a year, so I think that's a pile of shit.
Well, according to one of the leaks, they spend $60 billion a year on Black Ops.
Well, Black Ops is a broad category, so that's not the NSA only. So yes, okay. So yeah, $60 billion a year on all the functions.
budget.
Well, I'm just saying